Welcome to Gary's.
What video am I supposed to watch? Who's getting rich from your mortgage?
Okay, welcome back to Gary's Economics. Today we are going to explain mortgages. Okay, I wanted to do a video on mortgages, and the reason being is I talk a lot in this video about wealth inequality increasing. That means wealth is being transferred away from primarily ordinary people, middle classes, towards the very rich. And there's a variety of ways in which we see that happening. So it's being okay, I wanted to do a video on mortgages. And the reason being is I talk a lot in this video about wealth inequality increasing. That means wealth is being transferred away from primarily ordinary people, middle classes, towards the very rich. And there's a variety of ways in which we see that happening. So number one is lower rates of home ownership, and we're really seeing that especially for younger people. Number two is
this supposed to be about the US or the UK? Because I can't speak to the UK housing market at all. I don't know anything about that.
Is the lack of ability of people to accumulate financial assets like stocks and shares. So we primarily see that through pensions. Older generations were much more able to accumulate financial assets in pensions, and now they're not. Number three is the loss of government wealth, which means government privatizations and increased government debt. But those first three, well, the first one is very visible. The second one, less pensions and less government wealth. We often don't see them. What we often do see, and one of the most visible ways in which ordinary families are becoming poorer versus the very rich, is increased sizes of mortgages. And I wanted to speak a little bit about that because I think a lot of people don't see the way in which increased sizes of mortgages is a transfer of wealth from the middle class towards the super rich. I think they kind of think house prices are going up, mortgages are bigger, that's just the way it is. And in this video, I'm going to explain how increased the mortgage debt is a manifestation of increased wealth inequality. So the first thing I need to explain, in order to explain this, is something that I have spoken about before on the channel. We've got two videos, one called debt and one called what is money. If you want to understand these concepts better, you can go and watch them afterwards. The basic concept which you need to understand is total mortgage debt is always zero. This is the first thing you need to understand. Total mortgage debt is always zero. If you look at the amount of debt across the whole society, mortgage debt, it is always zero. And that might seem crazy. You know, so many people have mortgages, how could it possibly add up to zero? That is because every debt has a creditor. For everyone who is in debt, there is somebody who is in credit. Your money is always owed to somebody. So what that means on a very simple level is the total amount of debt always has to equal the total amount of credit. And the total amount of...
I don't know if it's worth nitpicking. Is that necessarily true? What about in the case where debt is destroyed, like in the form of like selling debt to collectors or for like defaults or bankruptcies? I don't know how relevant that is, but okay, let's...
Mortgage.
I mean, like it's kind of true. There's always like debt and creditors on both sides, I guess.
Interest that is paid always has to equal the total amount of mortgage interest that is received by somebody. So what that means is it is not possible for mortgage debt to grow massively for the middle classes, for ordinary families, unless somebody is accumulating a huge amount of money. Now, this is an important concept, and I think I'm going to sit on it for a little bit and explain.
I'm trying to think how much I want to fight with my audience. Unless he's going somewhere that is like very unpredictable to me. This is about to be the most retarded fucking analysis of debt and wealth in the history of any fucking video I've ever seen in my entire life. But I guess we'll see. There are a lot of upsides for lenders as the amount of mortgages and everything grow. That's true. But I mean, there's also upsides for borrowers as well because you're acquiring an asset of increasing value, obviously, right? So, I mean, proportionally, as long as the interest rates, I guess, aren't growing abysmally or something. But I don't know. We'll see where he's going with this.
In a little bit more clearly, because I think it's important to understand how debt works and how money works in order to understand how mortgages are working in our society. We live in a debt.
If you destroy the debt, then you also destroy the asset the creditor has for owning the debt. It is still a net zero transaction when looking at the total system. Yeah, I mean, like technically, I guess that's true.
Debt-based monetary system. That's true whether you're in the UK, the US, Europe, Australia, anywhere. Our monetary system is a debt-based monetary system. What I mean by that is all money in our society is created by the making of a loan. So at the very first instance, money is created by, in this country, the Bank of England, lending money to a commercial bank such as Lloyds, Halifax, Barclays. So at that point, a bank borrows money from the Bank of England, they get money and they also get debt. The money and the debt are created at the same time. And that's important, and it has to work like that, because the person who has the money receives the interest. And it is only possible to receive interest if somebody is paying interest. And if somebody is paying interest, that means somebody has debt. Now, all money in our monetary system works like this. It's not obvious that that is happening. And I'll explain why I give an example. So say I borrow £100 from the bank. I've got £100. Then I use that £100 to pay Jack for filming this video. Jack then has the £100, but he doesn't have the debt. I've got the debt. So from the perspective of Jack, he just thinks, well, I've got £100, you know, there's no debt against his £100. But if you look from the perspective of the whole of society, there has to be a debt balancing it. And in this case, I'm the person with the debt. So I pay interest to the bank that lent me the money, and then the Bank of England pays interest to Jack. So I really want to hammer this in because you need to understand this. All money is credit. All money is debt. All money is credit. All money is debt. In fact, I think you will understand money better if you almost stop using the term money at all and you just think about money as credit. Every form of money is credit. What that means is it is money owed to you by someone and they pay you interest on that money. So if you have money in Barclays Bank, that's credit. Barclays owes you that money. If you have a government bond, that's credit. The government owes you that money. And even if we think about cash, if you pull a banknote out of your wallet, you will see at the top, it says here, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £20. I don't think you're going to be able to get that, but if you've got a £20 note. So even this cash is essentially a form of credit. The government offers to pay you money. And if you give this money to a bank, the government will pay interest on this cash. That's why you can make money on cash. So all money is credit and all money is debt. There is always somebody in debt for every piece of money or credit anybody has. And that has to be true, otherwise there would be nobody to pay the interest.
Wait. Kill me, he's mixing up private banks lending out versus the central bank carrying a credit for outstanding dollars. No, I don't think he is. I think it's just like a basic overview of kind of another way to kind of think about money. I don't think he's saying anything incorrect so far.
On the flip side, if anybody has debt, there is always somebody with credit against it. This is the way money works. I always get some people get very angry when I say this on the channel. Unfortunately, it is true. We live in a debt-based monetary system. Debt and credit always have to totally equal. So what this means is, if mortgage debt is suddenly exploding and getting much bigger, somebody somewhere must be accumulating an enormous amount of credit. Somebody somewhere must be accumulating an enormous amount of money. And the reverse is also true. If some group somewhere is accumulating an enormous amount of money, somebody must be going into debt. It's the only way it works. These two things have to balance. So if one group in society tries to accumulate money, somebody else has to accumulate debt. If one group in society starts to accumulate debt, somebody else has to accumulate money. These debts and credits, this debt and money, they are the same thing. They are two sides of the same coin. One side cannot exist without the other. So when you see mortgage debt increasing massively, or for example, when you see government debt increasing massively during COVID, you should be asking yourself, who is accumulating money here? And you should be understanding it is only possible for those debts to increase because a group is accumulating money. And in fact, if a group accumulates money, they are forcing somebody to go into debt. So in a very real...
I don't know if I like, I don't know if he's speaking on like a level higher than what I'm, or more abstract than how I would analyze this. But like, everything he's saying is like technically true, but this is like so true of everybody that does economics on YouTube. I don't know why. They always only look at one or two parts of a transaction instead of looking at all parts. So if you acquire debt I don't know if I would say necessarily, I'm either using these terms incorrectly, I'm just like nitpicking, that you're like going into debt. Like, let's say, for instance, I borrow $1 million to buy $1 million house. Have I gone into debt? Well, I have an outstanding mortgage for $1 million, but I also have an asset that's worth $1 million. My net worth technically hasn't changed. So I say like I'm in debt. I mean, I'm kind of in debt, but it's like it's a secured loan. It's backed up by an asset that I also own. Like what he's saying is not technically wrong yet, but that's a pretty key part of the transaction. It's not like this is just debt out of nowhere that people just have to pay money on and they're not getting anything for it. But I don't know. We'll see.
Sense, these increased mortgages, these increased debts.
To be clear, he hasn't said anything wrong or incorrect or misleading so far. Just depends on where he goes with this.
Of ordinary families, of the middle class, they literally are the accumulations of wealth of the rich. It would not be possible for
like, wait, what?
debts of ordinary families, of the middle class. They literally are the accumulations of wealth of the rich. It would not be possible.
Like that jump was retarded, I think. I am curious, can somebody link, do banks majorly profit off of mortgages, or is it usually derivative products or other things they sell or service? I'm curious what the overall earnings are for different financial institutions. Although I think banks that sell mortgages, I don't even think they're allowed to commingle those with investment products anymore, right? I think after 2007, 2008, I don't think you do that anymore, but.
So in a very real sense, these increased mortgages, these increased debts of ordinary families, of the middle class, they literally are the accumulations of wealth of the rich.
But arguably, they're also the accumulation of wealth of the people that are borrowing the money too, right? Because when you take out a mortgage and you buy a house, your wealth is increasing, right? Ideally, the value of the property is increasing faster than the money would have been just sitting there otherwise. And you're also getting the utility as well out of living in the house. You have a place to live, but
it would not be possible for your family, for your kids, for your grandkids to go massively into debt unless some group of people, which in this case is the very rich, are accumulating money. In fact, what you are seeing here is
don't say wealth transfer. Oh no, don't say it.
Manifestation of what I talk about in my flows of wealth video, which is when you live in a very wealth unequal society, as increasingly we do, what that means is a small group of people own all of the companies, they own all of the commercial property, they own most of the properties, and ordinary people are continually having to pay them rents, profits, and interest. If inequality gets very large, these flows of cash from ordinary families to the rich become very large.
Why are we just totally ignoring that it's not like everything he's saying would be 100% correct if people were just borrowing money and sitting on a massive pile of money in their bank that they're just paying interest on or something. That would be true. But why are we ignoring the fact that this debt is not only being used to secure an underlying asset, it's being leveraged to secure an underlying asset. Pretty massively leveraged, right? 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 10 to 1 if you've got like a FHA loan or something. Or 100 to 1. I think you might even be able to do like 1% down if you do like an FHA loan. So I don't know why but maybe he'll get to that. I'll keep listening.
And they have to balance somehow. And there's only really 3 ways that those cash flows can be balanced. One is ordinary people work much more for the rich, although in reality, if you try and do that, it tends to just push wages down. 2 is ordinary families sell their assets to the rich, and that is why we are seeing reduced home ownership rates and reduced ability to save in pensions.
I don't even know if home ownership rates in the US, how are those going down? Home ownership rate. I mean, it's what the max, 10-year max. So we had our huge spike in 2000, around here before the big collapse, 2007, 2008. And then it seems like it's been going way up. But like the x-axis on this graph, or the y-axis, is from 63 to 70. So in 1980, it seems like it was 65.5%, and now it's 65.7%. It seems like it hasn't changed that much, but at least in the United States. But
the third one is the rich can lend that money back to the poor. And that is what we're seeing when we see mortgage sizes.
I don't know if the rich lend money to the poor via mortgage loans in the United States. I would have to have a better understanding of like Treasury combined with ordinary banks that do mortgages and everything else. But like, I don't think selling mortgages are your most profitable investment products. And if you're a wealthy person, you're not looking for whatever prime plus 1% or whatever the fuck banks sell mortgages for a return on your investment. You want like 7 to 10%. You're investing in businesses and companies or like the stock market. And I don't believe the stock market should in any way be connected to mortgages. So I don't understand that statement there, but.
Increase. What you are seeing there is the rich taking enormous amounts of money from working families and then lending it back. Okay, but up till now, that's all been very theoretical, but I want to talk about how it works in practice. So let's take a practical example which happened recently. So I speak a lot on the channel about how during COVID, governments gave out an enormous amount of money, and that money was largely in the end accumulated by richer people. If you want to understand how that worked, you can go and watch our first video on the channel, How the Rich Got Rich from COVID-19. When these rich people start to accumulate cash, what do? So rich people, they tend to want to own a balanced portfolio. What that means is they want to own things like stocks and shares, but they also want to own things like bonds because bonds pay very regular interest. They want to own things like gold. They want to own property as well. At first, they'll go out and they'll buy the stuff that's easy to buy, stocks and shares, these kinds of things. But eventually, they're going to want to diversify and they're going to want to own property. The problem with property is it's very difficult for super rich people to buy enormous amounts of property. So say if you're very rich and you suddenly receive an income of £10 million, you can quite easily buy £10 million of stocks. You can do it really at the drop of a hat. It's much harder to buy £10 million of property. If you were to buy £10 million of property, you would then have to manage.
He is just trying to explain extremely detailed concepts in a simple format for the average person to digest. With regards to some topics, going too in-depth can just harm your goals. No, that's not the problem. The problem is he's incorrectly explained. He's missed essential parts of the explanation. There are ways that you can very simply explain things without missing huge parts of what you're explaining. My sus level is like at a 8 out of 10 right now for everything this guy says is probably horseshit or insanely ideologically driven. If you're going to do a creditor debtor analysis without accounting for the underlying asset that the debt is securing, because the type of credit that you, or the type of debt that you incur is meaningfully and massively different from person to person. And whether or not you're getting taken advantage of or fucked versus whether or not it might be a good debt for you to take on is just, it's not a simple analysis, it's wrong.
These properties, you'd have to worry about tenants, you have to worry about rent, you have to worry about people's boilers breaking. It's a hassle, basically. So what do rich people do? Well, let me give an example. If I had £500,000 cash and I wanted to buy a property, I could go out and spend £500,000, buy a flat in London. £500,000 is kind of roughly what a flat in London costs nowadays. I could rent it to my sister and she could pay me rent every month. Alternatively, I could lend that money to my sister. She could go out and buy the house herself and then she could pay me interest every month. How are these two things different to me? Well, the first thing I want to point out is...
Okay, I'm gonna give my explanation and we'll see what he says. Hold on.
Cash. And I wanted to buy property. I had £500,000 cash.
Okay,
and I wanted to buy property.
Okay.
I could go out and spend £500,000, buy a flat in London. £500,000 is kind of roughly what a flat in London costs nowadays. I could rent it to my sister and she could pay me rent.
Okay, first key difference. Real estate investments or investing in real estate is a lot different than just buying a house. A lot of people say like, oh yeah, like I'm kind of in real estate, I have a mortgage. What do you mean? That's like saying I'm investing in my car because taxi cab drivers make money driving people in their car, but it's just a car. That's not a revenue generating aspect. You don't have a cash flow from just owning a car. Just because you have a car doesn't mean you can call it a taxi if you're not actually giving rides in it. Okay. But so he talks about buying a flat and then he says renting it to his sister. And it sounds like he's also fronting all of the money for it to his sister as well. So he's loaning her the money too, I think.
Every month. Alternatively, to my sister and she could pay me rent every month.
All right.
Alternatively, I could lend that money to my sister.
Okay. The 500K.
She could go out and buy the house herself.
Okay.
And then she could pay me interest every month.
Okay.
How are these two things different to me?
The difference between you buying it, having her living there, and then you collecting rent versus her buying it. I can write the rest of this video. Hold on 1 second. Let's make some guesses. I feel like I know what he's going to say. He's going to say, okay, so in scenario 1, you buy the flat, then you rent it out to the other person. And then in scenario number 2, you lend the person the money. Oh, no, fuck. I don't know where he's going to go there because I thought we were doing a landlords is evil bit, but I'm boxing him. Maybe not. Number 2 is you lend the person the money. They buy it. You collect interest from their payments. I mean, in the first example, you've literally become a landlord, right? So in example 1, you are a landlord. In example 2, you're just a lender. You are a lender. If you're a landlord, that means that you have, now you have, it's a job. So that means you have to service the loan. There's probably going to be some, wait. Not service the loan, I'm sorry. You have to collect rent payments. You probably have to do some form of upkeep, some form of property upkeep, whatever the local laws are. And then for interest, no, you don't get any interest because it's just yours. You're renting out of them. Okay, so you're collecting rent payments and you're doing some form of property upkeep if you're a landlord. Also, you are in for or invested for some percentage. Are we assuming that he bought it outright, or are we assuming that he bought it with a mortgage initially when he's renting it? For some percentage of the property. And you are, or no, we'll just do that. He said bought outright. Oh, okay. Oh, in that case, then you're in for the total cost of the property. Okay, if you lent the money to the other person and then you bought it, you collect interest from their payments. Okay, so here you're a lender. No real job at all, except you just collect loan payments. No property upkeep. In for the total cost of the, you're still in for the total cost of the property because you're lending them the money, I guess. You're going to make more money if you buy the flat and then you rent it to the person, you're probably going to make a little bit more money on the first one. And then on the second one, if you lend the money personally, your interest rate that you have to charge that person is going to be so fucking low. This is just stupid. Why would you ever do number 2? It's hard to even imagine lending somebody money for a mortgage when bank interest rates are going to be so much more competitive than anything else you could ever fucking charge realistically to a person. Okay, hold on. So on this first one, making money on rent, and then on the second one, you're making money on interest payments. Oh, and you're also making money, we'll say capital appreciation on underlying asset, I guess, as well. Okay, I guess. All right, we'll go with these two. We'll see what happens. All right. Wait.
Well, the first thing I want to point out is, what is the difference between those two examples on the housing market and on house prices? The answer is there is exactly no difference. You know, the housing market doesn't see whether it's me or whether it's my sister, whether I'm buying directly or whether I'm lending to my sister. All the housing market sees is somebody's coming in with £500,000 and buying a house. So what that shows you is whether I buy the house directly or whether I lend the money out to buy the house, in both cases, I drive the house price up. The second thing is this question of
I think that's probably true, I think, yeah.
who actually owns the house. So legally, technically, if I lend the money to my sister owns the house. But what is her net worth after she buys it? Well, she buys a flat that's worth £500,000.
Okay, he's bringing up the asset side here. Okay.
She's worth nothing.
Okay.
So essentially, I own the equity in the house. So what I'm trying to say...
Wait, what?
A flat that's worth £500,000. She has debt of £500,000. She's worth nothing. So essentially, I own the equity in the house.
I think he misspoke here, right?
So what I'm trying to say here,
here?
We should also look at cash flows, right? Given that interest rates now are about 5%, the amount of rent you would pay if you rented it is probably not that dissimilar to the amount of interest you would pay on borrowing that money. So really, whichever way you cut it, and there are some differences. Obviously, if the house price goes up, I'd prefer to own the house. If the house price goes down, I'd prefer to be the lender. But really,
that's highly simplified. I mean, it's like, it could be true, I guess, but you would hope that it's too complicated to just say that simply, actually. I mean, I think that's an okay simplification, maybe. Maybe. Houses are complicated because there's so many different tax specific rules around houses and, yeah, but maybe I guess we say.
Really, the point I'm trying to make here is lending money for mortgages is essentially a way for the rich to buy houses via the middle class and not have to worry about the house price movements and not have to worry about managements.
I just don't understand how he's connecting all these things. I don't understand. I just don't understand how he's connecting all these things together. Destiny, no, he means that on balance, he's still worth the money. He doesn't mean that he owns the house. He's just worth that, what the house is. Oh, because on the balance sheets, he's lent her 500K. She owes him 500K. And then she bought a house for 500K. The bank, but she has an asset for 500K. Wait, why doesn't it all balance out to zero again? When it all... Because it's his initial money anyway, right? He's coming into the equation with $500,000 that nobody else has at the moment, right? So he should have a plus 500K by the end of all this transaction because it's his money regardless. He's the one lending, right? You own most of the equity? Well, yeah, because he's the one bringing all the capital. Of course. What do you mean? It's all his money, no? If he lends her money and then she buys a house, he has the quote-unquote equity in the house, but he's the one who brought all the equity initially. It's all his money, right?
Mortgage lending and the accumulation of credit by the rich is the way in which rich people buy houses. And if you...
I mean, definitionally, it's kind of true, but it's just like such a stupid point. Like, if I go into a situation and I have no money and I want to borrow something to buy something, theoretically, especially if we're talking about a secured loan, it's literally secured. The loan is secured with the underlying asset. I mean, in a way, you could say the person who's lent me the money, in a way, has ownership or equity kind of in the underlying asset. But I mean, that's just like a tautology. Definitionally, that's true. But I mean, what...
You are sitting on a house with an enormous mortgage. Realistically, you don't own that house. The person who lent you the money owns that house.
I mean, like, kind of, yeah. But I mean, what is the point of this analysis? I mean, this is true of all forms of borrowing or... like, is he attaching like a normative, like a moral value to this? That it's like good or bad, or what's the alternative? Do you just, nobody's ever allowed to borrow money to buy an asset, or?
And it's important to understand this because as we go forward, this increased size of mortgage is going to be the primary way in which we see the wealth of the middle class decline, especially here in the...
I don't agree though. How does that make the wealth of the middle class decline? If somebody lends you money to buy a home, you pay them back with interest, but the value of the house also appreciates too. Like, you're getting an asset that's appreciating in value as well. Assuming you don't refinance constantly, or you don't like pull out money with a HELOC and own more money on the appreciating asset value. Ideally, the asset appreciates, and it generally does, right, over time. The asset will appreciate more than the loan that you've taken out or the interest you're paying on the loan. I mean, like, it just feels like one of those, like, if somebody's winning, you're losing arguments. Like,
in the UK. In the UK, ordinary people tend to hold their assets in property. And there is and there will be less direct owning of property by ordinary families. But what you will see increasingly is the government need to keep people owning property politically. The rich have this enormous amount of cash, which is driving house prices up. The way that the government can square that circle is to encourage rich people to lend that money, and that money gets borrowed eventually by ordinary people.
do rich people, is that how it works in the UK? Do people go over, or are there a lot of like private from individual loans for houses and stuff, or?
And I think this gets disguised somewhat by the fact that this lending tends to go through the banking system. And I think a lot of people assume that when mortgages go up, what that means is the bank is accumulating credit.
The point he's making is that what you can or can't do without capital up front and the pressure that creates on the people without the capital, yeah, that's why you borrow money. Not everybody has infinite money, so you borrow money. Is that... Gary says inequality is bad. Bigger mortgages means a bigger loan. Loan is on the wealth side of the rich people's balance sheet. Thus, bigger mortgage means higher wealth inequality. Okay, so what is the solution there? Do you ban all forms of loans? Or is nobody allowed to borrow money ever again for anything?
But remember what I said at the beginning of this video, that credit and debt always equals in society. So we can go and we can look at any individual and we can say, how much credit do you have? How much money do you have? Versus how much debt do you have? And we can take the credit and the money, we can subtract off the debt, and we can work out your total money position. We can do that to any individual in society, any company in society. When we add it up, we know it's going to work out to zero. If you look at the banks do have an enormous amount of credit because anyone who has a mortgage owes money to the bank. But the bank has also an enormous amount of debt. And if you look at it, you'll find that the debts of banks, which is money they owe to depositors, money they owe to lenders such as bondholders of the banks, these debts in most cases are pretty much the same as the total amount of credit.
So borrow more regardless of interest and just pay out more money to the companies fucking you. What are you talking about? Money, there should be multiple organizations or lenders to choose from that should be competing on low interest rates. You don't typically pay huge interest rates in the United States for mortgages. I can't speak to the UK, by the way. Everything I say is only for the US. I don't know how it works in the UK. Maybe in the UK you get fucked by mortgage lenders or whatever, but...
They lend out. What this means is banks are essentially middlemen. They borrow money from the rich, they lend money to mortgages, and the mortgage interest goes from you, the mortgager, to the bank, to the rich. These people are essentially just middlemen in between. So you need to understand this, because governments will see the only way to keep ordinary people in houses is to encourage high levels of lending, high levels of mortgages, to do things like reduce the checks on mortgage eligibility, to encourage things like longer term mortgages, to encourage things like multi-generational mortgages. And this is exactly the transfer.
My mortgage rate is almost 7%. Yeah, but I don't think the majority of that is because you're getting fucked by the financial institution. I think the majority of that has to do with the money supply that's made available by the Federal Reserve and the fact that like lending to big banks and everything by the US government is at a high interest rate. It's not like Wells Fargo or US Bank or whatever other fucking banks in the US are just suddenly making a fuck ton of money off your mortgage interest.
Of wealth from the middle class to the rich. You are getting further and further into debt. The rich are getting further and further into credit.
Well, you're not really getting further and further into debt though, right? Because you have an underlying asset, no?
They are owning your house via your mortgage, and they are driving you into poverty. Yeah, I should be clear. I'm not saying don't take a mortgage. I'm not saying don't buy a house. Ordinary people, especially ordinary young people, are put in a situation where you either have to pay rent to the rich or you have to pay interest to the rich. There's no way of getting out of that unless your parents are rich and they can let you live in their house. You can't really escape this system. Over time, house prices tend to go up, which means that financially you probably are better off borrowing as opposed to renting. But what this means is your kids will have larger and larger and larger mortgages. They will have larger and larger amounts of debt. You know, it's already normal for an ordinary person to have £500,000 of debt.
I believe you think of Gary as the Peter Zeihan of wealth inequality, then you basically have all his takes all correct. He believes inequality causes all problems. I don't like how people obsessed over Peter Zeihan and and the demographics thing, but I've never heard Peter say anything wrong or stupid in any video ever. I don't think I've ever heard him give a take. I'm like, ooh, that's like kind of dumb. This whole video, it was a waste of time. I don't think you learned anything valuable in this video. In fact, you came away misled, I think, by why we borrow money to even acquire assets or what.
In the mortgage, that will become 1 million, that will become 2 million. And that means that your kids and your grandkids will end up with mortgages that they can never, ever, ever repay. And that
why can they never, ever, ever repay them? How would they acquire the mortgage in the first place, right? Because that's a product that's bought and sold as well with qualifications attached to it. Like,
will be debt owed to the rich, and it will be interest paid to the rich. And they can use that interest to push house prices up even further.
Well, it's not necessarily the interest rate that pushes house prices up further. It's also demand for houses, right?
And now compete your kids for the assets that they need. This will get worse and worse over time. That is the nature of compound interest. I want to be clear, I don't think...
What?
Banks are evil, I don't think lenders are evil, I don't think mortgages are evil, but increased mortgages are debt to somebody, they are debt to the rich, they will grow and grow. This increased debt is the main way in which we will see ordinary families get poorer over time. The only way to fight it is to rebalance power, it's to increase tax on the rich, it's to decrease taxes on ordinary families.
Watch this video on compound interest? Oh God.
That's what we campaign for on this channel. Please support us, tell your friends, tell your mum. Good luck.
Okay, this is fucking retarded. Why aren't we all getting rich from compound interest? Is this what it is?
Okay, welcome back to Gary's Economics. Today we are going to explain compound interest. Okay, so compound interest is a very popular topic on social media, especially the financial influencer space. Famously, Albert Einstein is said to have called compound interest the most powerful force in the universe. He probably didn't really say that. What else are we misunderstanding about compound interest? Okay, we should probably start with a very clear explanation of what compound interest is, why it's so popular and why it's a big deal, why Albert Einstein allegedly thought it was so important. So the big thing about compound interest is that it grows in what mathematicians would call an exponential fashion. And we're going to show you how that works very quickly in a very simple explanation. So let's assume you have a really good investment and you're able to make 10% a year, which is a very high rate of return. Let's say you start with £1,000. In your first year, you will get given £100 in interest, let's say, puts you to 1,100. But in the next year, since you not only get 10% on your initial 1,000, but also this 100, you end up seeing your 1,100 go up by not just 100, but £110, which is of course more, which means you end up with 1,210. And this process increases each time. So next time, this goes up by 110 plus another 11. So you're going 121. And this just keeps happening basically. Every single year, not only does your investment go up, but your growth increases as well. What this means is because the growth each year is increasing, it means that if we imagine your wealth over time, so here's how old you are, here's how rich you are, it doesn't just go up in a straight line, like this dotted line, it actually goes up in this curved exponential way, which kind of curves upwards, to the moon, some would like to say. And this is the reason why compound interest is so appealing. It gives the sense that if we just save enough year after year, we'll go more and more and more, and our wealth will shoot upwards towards the moon. And this is the reason why compound interest is so popular, basically. And it's super, super attractive, and it's super compelling, and this is why a lot of financial influencers will say, save your money year after year, build up your compounding interest. We can all see our savings go to the moon, and we can all be spectacularly rich. That is the power of compound interest. And behind this is an idea about society and an idea about the economy, which is basically true. So why is it that you can make these kind of growing returns year after year? What is happening in theory in the economy that allows these exponential, rapidly growing returns? This idea is probably best explained by imagining, and economists love to do this, and I think it's often quite unrealistic, imagining your sort of desert island economy. So you arrive on a desert island, there's nothing there, you're struggling to survive, what do you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is you take care of your food supplies. So you build a kind of farm in your first year, and then because you've set up the sort of basics of a farm, that means that next year you have more food, which means you have an extra bit of time, which you can use to build a better house, and you can use to build better tools. And then each year, because you're improving your productive capacity every single year, you have a bit more free time and a bit more resources, which you can then use to build your productive capacity again and again and again. So the kind of compound interest that we are seeing from an individual perspective is mirrored by these kind of compounding returns in society. Because each year, as you build things up, you have more resources, and you can use those extra resources to build more resources again. And that is why the compound interest that we see as individuals when we save can also be mirrored in ideas such as economic growth. because each year you have more resources. If you put those extra resources in as well, you can grow even faster each successive year. And these ideas about compound interest, they're really, really appealing to a certain kind of person. And to be honest, I am that certain kind of person, this kind of numbersy, shopkeepery person that likes this idea. If I work hard every year, if I save a bit every year, I can get more, and then the growth will grow, and then the growth will grow on top of that. And eventually, if I just work hard every year and save every year, I'll get rich, and in the long run, I'll be rich. It's a super compelling and it's a super appealing idea. There's only one problem with the idea. It doesn't work. And what I'm going to explain in this video is why it doesn't really work for individuals and why it doesn't really work for society. So I think you should be able to see relatively quickly that it doesn't work for individuals by simply comparing the story of compound interest with the reality of economic life in our society. So you see this graph that I drew for you of compound interest just going up and up and up to the moon. It gives this kind of implication that as long as you save every year, as long as you wait long enough, you'll get richer and richer and richer and richer, and by the end you'll be a millionaire. The big question I have is, I think probably the big tell that this doesn't really work like this. If it's so easy to become a millionaire, why is such a small minority of people actually millionaires? Is it because they're lazy? Is it because
You need to talk to this dude. He has literally worked with this stuff. No, he has not. If he's done any kind of education or whatever, it's on some weird Marxist shit. There's no shot this guy has any published work or he's just grifting on YouTube. This is like super stupid. I just feel like I'm listening to like a lefty talking about economics.
why is such a small minority of people actually millionaires? Is it because they're lazy? Is it because they're not saving? Is it because they're spending too much money? Or is the reality a little bit more complicated than that? So the big reason why this idea of continually compounding returns doesn't work is because it ignores what economists would call the life cycle nature of savings. So most people only work for a period of their lives. Most people increasingly nowadays study up until they're 21 and they hope to retire when they're sort of 60, 65. And they work for this 45-year period. This means that you can't do this saving and compounding for your whole life. You have two periods, one at the beginning and one at the end where you're not working. And during those periods where you're not working, what is happening to your compounding? Well, essentially, it's working in reverse. When you're young and you're a student, you're not earning any money and you're having to pay to go to university. And when you are old and you're retired, you're also not earning any money and you increasingly have...
He literally went to Oxford and worked for millions betting against the Western economies. No, he didn't. No, there's zero. I'll bet my whole life on it right now. This guy was never a trader betting against millions or whatever, or doing any of that bullshit. If he was, he would be a billionaire or a trillionaire right now. 0% chance of that being true.
Have really pretty large running costs in terms of paying your bills, paying for your just your regular needs. But as you get older, increasingly a lot of people are having to spend a lot of money on caring as they get old and end of life care. That basically means that the actual graph of wealth over time looks quite different. So let's draw that graph again. Here's how rich you are. Here's your age. What does it really look like? Well, first of all, you don't start at zero. You start down here. You've got to pay off your mortgage. You've got to pay off your student debts. Then you start saving. Well, things happen. You have your first kid. That definitely costs you a bit. You have your second kid. Now you're making a bit more because you're old. Now you retire. Well, what happens when you retire? Suddenly you start needing this money to get you through your retirement. You start to get sick. You need a carer. You need to be in a home.
I don't even understand. This doesn't even make sense. Like, there are so many assumptions baked into this that are not even necessarily correct. Like the fact that he wants this function to be decreasing here might not even make sense, right? Like it could be the case that you start saving money and you've got your interest rate. Let's say that you save the money and you literally just saved and you died at 65. Or let's say that you continued working until you were 80. You worked until you died, okay? So this is the amount of money that you, in an ideal world, you save and you compound interest and all that bullshit, right? But let's say instead at 85, let's say that you stop working, you stop contributing. It doesn't have to go down at that point, right? You could theoretically have enough saved that even though the interest is allowing it to increase, it just doesn't increase as quickly. Like this is also a possible trajectory, or this is a possible trajectory, or this is a possible trajectory. Why would we assume, unless this is only supposed to be the rate of change, but that I don't think would make sense either, because it seems like he's talking about drops in absolute wealth here. This is fucking stupid.
You start needing this money to get you through your retirement. You start to get sick, you need a carer, you need to be in a home, and by the time you die, most people are back.
You don't have to, like depending on how much money you have saved, you never have to touch your principal as a retiree. It just depends on how much money you have saved. But this isn't a function of compound interest or interest at all. It's a function of like, what are your average life expenses past the point of retirement, and then how much of a nest egg do you have, and like, I'm getting triggered. This is going to be triggering for me.
On zero. And this is what happened to my grandparents. They all owned property when they were alive. They all basically lost all of that wealth by the time they died. Because while you might have thought you were saving up and going to the moon, what most people are actually doing is just saving up enough to survive their retirements. So if I look at...
That could be the case. You don't save enough. That's possible. That might even be the ordinary thing, but that has nothing to do with interest or compound interest or anything else. That you just didn't have a big enough nest egg when you retired. but this has nothing to do with interest or anything at all. Like it's
My family, and I think this is very common for British families or families overseas, all of my grandparents actually were able to own property at some point in time. But because they incurred so many costs in their later life, paying for their retirement, paying for their end-of-life care, they basically ended up dying with nothing. So
what does it have to do with compound interest or anything? Like what? Like what? What
you think you are seeing as compound growth is actually really just what we would call as economists life cycle saving. And you, as a family, are not really accumulating anything over time. And the second reason why it doesn't really work for individuals is quite simply, increasingly, for a big chunk, maybe even a majority of workers, there quite simply is almost nothing left over after paying your regular cost of living. As rent, energy and food get more expensive and wages don't keep up, more and more people are ending up in a situation where basically they have nothing left to save. And this is a double problem, right? Because
how is Destiny not understanding the point of this video? It's not that hard. There's some percentage I'll never be able to communicate with. I'm sorry. The point of this video is that he's saying that the cost of living or the ability to work enough and save enough are problems in society, which might be true. That arguably that is true. But then he's also dazzling you with a bunch of economic terms and finance stuff that has no fucking connection whatsoever to what the fuck he's talking about. And then he's trying to pretend that he's connecting these two things together. It's like somebody saying housing is unaffordable right now in the United States. Let me explain quantum field theory and the 13 dimensions of fucking subatomic particles or whatever. Like, that what? These things don't connect whatsoever. Compound interest or saving over your life has nothing to do with the increased costs of healthcare when you're, you know, getting older or other expenses you might incur or like this. It's just these things are not connected at all. He's just taking like a basic thing from finance and then he's like turning it on its head to pretend that it's explaining some greater economic or finance truth, but it's not.
More and more people are ending up in a situation where basically they have nothing left to save. And this is a double problem, right? Because firstly, if you can't save anything, you can't get these compounding interests. And secondly, once you understand the previous point about life cycle saving, you realize that you need this accumulated compound interest that you've accumulated over the course of your life to pay for your retirement. So what we have as a situation now, many working people can't afford to accumulate these compound interests at all because they can't save. And that means that their retirements are increasingly completely unfunded, which is a big problem. But how does that map in to this idea, which I introduced at the beginning, which is the reason that individuals can compound their interest and get growth upon growth upon growth, is because society can compound its interest and get growth upon growth upon growth by building more and more and more productive capacity year after year and creating more production and more free time to continually compound growth as a society. If societies can grow in a compounding way forever, why can't individuals grow in a compounding way forever? And once again, we can realize this difference between the theory and the reality by basically looking at what's happening in real life, which is just like in the individual case, the theory tells us compound interest can make us all rich over time. And yet in reality, very, very few people.
Like nobody says that. That's not true. Nobody says that compound interest will make you rich over time. That's not a true thing. It's just that if you start saving early and you save, compound interest gives you more money than you otherwise would if you aren't saving consistently or reinvesting your earnings from your savings. That's all compound interest is. Compound interest is not a magical fucking key to becoming super rich. Nobody says this. This is like if you deposit $10 a year into a savings account, you'll get compound interest, but nobody says it's going to make you rich. It's just also for a guy who supposedly is a master fucking trader and economist, he has very few facts or figures that he's ever throwing up here. Why not link at least even a fucking news article showing or demonstrating some of the numbers he's talking about?
Whatever you become even millionaires, never mind billionaires. The theory tells us that economic growth can compound forever in an economy and a society. We can make increasingly richer economies. And yet we increasingly live in economies which struggle to get even 1% economic growth. Why is that? And the reason for this is basically live in economies which struggle in an economy and a society. We can make increasingly richer economies. And yet we increasingly live in economies which struggle to get even 1% economic growth. Why is that? And the reason.
Wait, what year is this video? Aren't most economies still growing at the like expected like 2 to 4% per year? Most industrial economies, or not industrialized. Modern economies people keep waiting for the slowdown, but I don't think it's happened yet. Or has it? Or maybe Europe is fucked. I don't know how fucked Europe was after the pandemic and everything. Average GDP growth per country, Europe. Maybe Europe has finally hit its fucking cap. Germany, GDP, growth rate. Does the St. Louis Fed keep track of other country stuff? Real gross domestic product. Is this going to show me a rate? It's not going to, is it? Edit graph. units. Percent change. Let's do 2000 to 2024. Wait, did that not change? This has been pretty stagnant for Germany. If these economies aren't even growing that fast, how are they taking advantage of America? What is Trump talking about? I heard a claim for the first time 2 weeks ago, but I don't know. I just don't know how true it is because I haven't looked up any of it. But the that baseline manufacturing that Trump obsesses about bringing back, that supposedly a lot of European countries have gotten stuck in that baser manufacturing stage for like Germany especially, and that not being able to have a more advanced economy is actually hurting them a lot. I don't know how true that claim is though. St. Louis by GDP growth. Oh, like France seems to be doing a lot better. Well, I say that actually, I'm sorry. If the line is 2%, they're still under 2% generally. Damn, go America. Okay. When I speak econ, I'm almost always centered on America, unless I specifically call other countries out, because I never know like housing markets or education or whatever for other countries. Not as anywhere near as familiar with other countries' economies.
The reason for this is basically that we live in economies that have physical limits. And I think the clue, in a way, should have been that the example which we used to introduce to the idea of compounding societal growth was a desert island. Well, what are the key features of a desert island? The key feature of a desert island is that it's completely uninhabited, completely wild. There's a ton of natural resources and nothing is built on that island. Now, if you land on an island like that, especially if it's a large island with tons of natural resources, you really can grow as a society in a compounding way because there's this enormous island for you to expand into, and you can build up one area of the island, you can industrialize one area of the island, you can use the tools that you can build in that area to expand to the next area, and to expand to the next area, and to expand to the next area, and to expand to the next area. The problem you have is that eventually you will get to the other side of the island and you will have nowhere to expand into. So what do you do when your model is built on rapidly expanding growth and you hit the end of your island? Well, this causes a problem, right? Because we have individuals in society, we have individuals in our society who are extremely wealthy. They own much of the natural resources. They also have a lot of productive equipment, like they might have factories or they might have farms or they might have mines. And these guys will see their wealth grow at about 4-5% a year. And that's not really a problem when you live in these infinite societies, because I can own this part of the country and I can grow it and I can grow it and I can grow it. And you guys can just keep moving out to new parts of this island. The problem happens is when you get to the end, I'm going to keep growing and you guys are going to have nowhere to go. And what happens in that situation? Well, in that situation, what you will...
Dusty doesn't know anything about economics. True, my bad. Let me change this guy. All forms of wealth in the economy are just billionaires stealing your money, and that's why every single thing in your life is sad. And when your PP can't get hard, it's because the billionaires stole the money from you. There you go. Am I an econ master now?
Often see is the economic growth of the whole society will fall significantly. Just like now I'm talking to you from the UK, which is a very old economy. It's a very industrialized economy. It industrialized a long time ago. Pretty much all of the island is owned. Pretty much all of the island is used. There's not really anywhere in Great Britain where you can go and live off of the land because all of the land is owned and used. And that means it's not super easy and super obvious to grow because you have this question of where do you grow to, where do you grow into? That means that the growth of the country has dropped down to only 1% now. And yet growth of the wealth of the rich is still around about 5% kind of level. And this is the key difference, which I really want you to understand. Economic growth in the UK is 1%.
Compound interest is promoted as the way for working class people to build wealth. Not sure why @Destiny is dismissing it. You're fucking retarded. I can help working poor people if you have questions. I can't help you if you're fucking retarded. I never said that compound interest doesn't help you build wealth. I've never said it in my entire life, and I've never dismissed compound interest. What does that even mean, to dismiss compound interest? I've just said that nobody has sold compound interest as this key to becoming rich and wealthy. Compound interest is just one tool that exists, or it's one fact of investing that helps you grow wealth through your lifetime. But ultimately, how wealthy you're going to be in retirement is a function of how much you work and how much you save. I mean, like, I've never heard anybody say anything different. I guess if there might be some like self-help guru dipshit who's like, oh, compound interest will make you ultra rich. Just deposit $1 a month in your bank account and you'll be the wealthiest man in the world. You'll instantly be a millionaire. That might be the case somewhere. I've never heard that before, but I don't usually listen to retards talk about finance. But if you listen to people like this, then maybe you have heard that before. I don't know.
In bigger countries like the US, it's 3% where they have more growth. The rich are growing their wealth at 5%. This is a lot bigger. 5% is a lot more. So if the rich are going at 5%, the economies are growing at 3% or maybe even 1%, where is this wealth coming from? Because I think it's very tempting when we look at growing wealth of individuals to think, well, this individual is a very productive individual. He's creating more productive things for our society. He's helping our society grow. But I don't think that actually maps onto the real lived situation of being a wealthy person. So I am a moderately wealthy person. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not Elon Musk, but I'm rich enough that I can live off of my passive income, which basically means I can live off the income of the wealth that I own. And when I made that wealth, which is in my sort of early to mid 20s, I had a lot of choices about what investments I was going to make. And at that point, I realized that not all investments are about creating new productive capital, creating new productive machinery. You have an alternative option as well, which is you can buy existing investments or you can lend money to other people, put other people into.
What does that even mean? Buy existing investments? Isn't that just an investment? What?
All investments are about creating new productive capital, creating new productive machinery. You have an alternative option as well, which is you can buy existing investments or you can lend money to other people.
I mean, lending money to other people is a form of investment. Generally, if somebody's borrowing the money, it's because they want to do something with it that's more valuable than just having the money sit there, no? What?
People into debt, essentially. And I made a variety of investments. I did invest into productive companies that were trying to make productive stuff. And I also invested into just buying a lot of existing assets. I bought stocks, I bought property, I bought gold. I did a bit of both things.
Like this is like the key idea that, I don't know, somebody said a master's at Oxford. I don't believe it. He either lied about it, I just don't believe anything. I don't believe it. This doesn't, what he's saying here doesn't make sense. That's like a retard statement on finance. I shouldn't be so mean because if this guy ever listens to my shit, he's gonna hate me. But
and I also invested into just buying a lot of existing assets.
Like,
I did invest into productive companies.
He's using the word productive, what, like a normie? What does he think productive means? Productive isn't like a thing that makes a thing, or like there's actual economics definitions for productivity, for and there's actual definitions. There's like capital. Like stuff that's meant to be invested, to generate revenue, to provide a return of investment for the person providing the money. Like buying, if you're buying or if you're investing in stocks, like definitionally, you're doing capital investments. I don't know what he's saying. Like, oh, I stopped investing in productive things and I just bought stocks. That statement that's a retard statement. Unless, I'll qualify, unless in the UK, you guys have a totally different vernacular for referring to all of these things. Maybe in the UK, maybe it's completely different. This guy doesn't talk like somebody who's...
All investments are about creating new productive capital, creating new productive machinery.
Like, I don't even know what that means. All investments are about creating new productive capital. Is that necessarily true? Or is every single investment in a capital? Maybe of some sort, I guess. But
you have an alternative option as well.
But then he says, you have an alternative to investing in capital, and that's buying stocks and stuff? I mean, how are investments in companies not at times investment in capital? What do you think companies do with the money? Like...
Which is you can...
You are being pedantic as fuck. I'm not being pedantic. He's just wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Like if I were to say, I don't believe in slavery, I don't think you should enslave people ever, but you can enslave Chinese people, but just no other people. And you're like, well, hold on, aren't Chinese people people? Oh, come on, you're gonna be pedantic now? No, it's not pedantic. These statements are financially illiterate, economically illiterate.
I was gonna make. And at that point, I realized that not all investments are about creating new productive capital.
And I know what he's doing now because now I'm not being as charitable, and I understand the bullshit grift here. When he says not all investments are about productive investments, he's trying to make this argument that you have some investments that truly grow the economy, these are like morally good things and they make the economy more productive. Then you have evil investments that just somehow magically, spookily generate more wealth and money for you, but they don't actually help the economy. They just give you more money. Like that's the thing he's doing here.
Creating new productive machinery. You have an alternative option as well, which is you can buy existing investments or you can lend money to other people, put other people into debt, essentially. And
even what he just said there, lend money to other people, meaning put people into debt. Why would you phrase it that way? Why not give a person the opportunity to do something that they don't have the current capital for? What do you think providing capital to a business is? Is putting the business in debt? I mean, it kind of is, but the idea is that they can deploy the capital in a more efficient way than you can, and they can make more money than you're gonna make on the interest side. That's the whole point of debt and credit, right? Like,
variety of investments. I did invest into productive companies that were trying to make productive stuff. And I also invested into just buying a lot of existing assets. I bought stocks, I bought property, I bought gold. I did a bit of both things. Now, because I made that money in the early 2010s, when it was a very weak economy, most of the productive investments that I invested in basically failed. And they failed because essentially there was a very weak consumer. I invested in some restaurant chains and things like this, and there were no customers, so these things failed. But the investments I made were I simply bought existing assets, bought existing stocks, bought existing properties, bought existing gold. These.
Why? Also, again, I don't know if it's a difference. Gold, is gold considered an asset? I thought gold was a commodity, or is a commodity a type of asset? Well, I don't know why you would even like stack these things against each other. Why would you talk about like stocks and why would you talk about stocks and gold and everything in the same thing? I don't know why you would even. Commodities are a type of asset. Yeah, that's true. But I don't know why he's like putting all these things in the same class. Like he's like, I invested in some individual restaurants that failed because they didn't have any customers. Okay. What am I supposed to take from that? Find a better restaurant. What do you mean? Like
restaurant chains and things like this, and there were no customers, so these things failed. But the investments I made were I simply bought existing assets, bought existing stocks, bought existing properties, bought existing gold. These investments all did really, really well. And I think
the reason why is because if you're investing individually in a restaurant, you're not, if you're investing individually in a restaurant, you're taking like an active role there in investing money. Like you have to have some kind of knowledge or expertise about the particular market you're getting involved in. But this is why the owner of a thing like this is going to make more money than just a person investing in it, right? Because you're taking a bigger risk, and it's like a job almost. Like if you would have invested in a restaurant that did really well, you would have made more money than your investments in the broad market probably. But I mean, it's a higher volatility, which is why there's higher return, and it requires more specialization, knowledge, and all this as well, right? Like it's called material participation.
A thing that happened to me, where I made a lot of money, and I tried to grow the economy and basically failed, and discovered that what works is buying existing assets, shows you exactly the problem with compounding interest.
Like buying existing assets is better than investing in the economy. What does that mean? Did he build the restaurant himself? When he talked about the restaurant that he invested in, what did he go there brick by brick and put it together, or did he just invest in an already existing restaurant? Did he open his own restaurant? Did he buy the construction company and the material to build the stuff? Was there already built? Like what? Oh, kill me.
In finite economies, in finite countries, on a finite planet, if you allow the rich to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, once you hit your natural limits, the rich will continue to grow by basically cannibalizing the existing middle class. And that's not because they're evil, it's simply because their wealth is so large and grows so quickly, and there are so few actual real investment opportunities that basically they have no other option. And if you think about it, this is also why it can't work for the individual. It's we live in a finite country, we live on a finite planet. There's only so much you can grow by expanding and expanding and expanding. Eventually you reach your limits. And once you reach those limits, what used to be a kind of everybody wins game, where we expand, we grow, becomes a competition for the existing resources. The rich will bid up the natural resources. They will increasingly buy and own the natural resources. They will increasingly monopolize important societal resources, like not just like farmland, but also we're obviously seeing the rich monopolizing things like ownership of social media, ownership of physical media, ownership of productive machinery, things like this. And over time, they will simply squeeze the middle class out. And you kind of reach this, I suppose what some people call late stage capitalism, where we've already expanded a lot. There's not a lot of obvious space to expand into. Everything is owned. And suddenly it starts to be a competition for who's going to own the existing resources. And that is a problem, because if you reach that point and you have a small amount of people who are extraordinarily rich, it will be very easy for them to outcompete the weaker players for those existing resources. And that is what we're basically seeing now. We are seeing the very rich growing their wealth at 5%, while the economy grows at just 1%. And the way that is happening is essentially the rich are eating your cake. The rich are taking your assets. And this is why the assets that you own will not be owned by your kids, will not be owned by your grandkids. It is why your kids and grandkids will probably own nothing and be extremely poor and probably quite unhappy. This is what happens when you allow compound interest. The rich eventually eat the middle class. And I think one thing that is interesting about this...
So why do we need to... This is like, it's not even wrong. He hasn't even... I don't even know what the claim is here. Like, this is so stupid. What the fuck are we talking about? What...
Dynamic is... What you first see when it first starts happening, when the rich start struggling to actually expand and start instead focusing on buying the existing resources, the first thing that you see when that happens is existing asset prices start to rise. For most people, the most visible asset price is housing, so they will see the house price rise. But it won't just be house price, you'll also see land prices going up, stock prices going up, the gold price going up, even things like classic cars and classic art. All of these asset prices will rise. And what you are seeing there is kind of the dispossession of the middle class and the driving of the middle class into poverty. But because these middle class people own assets, they very often see those asset prices rising and think, this is good, we're getting rich. And really what I want to do in this video is ring the alarm bell and say, when you see those asset prices rising, that is not you getting rich. That is your class, your group of people, ordinary families, losing your assets. And it is your kids and your grandkids being driven into poverty. I'm always reminded when I see ordinary people happy about house price rises of a Bible story. I'm trying to get more Bible stories into these videos. There's a story in the Old Testament about two sons called Esau and Jacob. Esau's the eldest son, so he's the person who should inherit the land of the father according to the rules at the time. He's a big, strong guy, likes to go hunting, but he's a bit stupid. He goes out hunting one day, he gets lost, he comes back late, he's starving, hungry. And his younger brother Jacob says to him, listen, I can see you're hungry. I'll give you this little bowl of food that I've made if you give me your inheritance. And the older son says, well, I'm not going to get my inheritance for another 40, 50 years. Like, fuck that. That's a long time away. I'm hungry, yeah, give me the food. And the end result is that he's...
Wait, so, I'm sorry, I was just reading this part of this fucking thesis. Oh my God. What is this? Am I going to...
Trying to get more Bible stories into these videos.
Okay.
There's a story in the Old Testament about two sons called Esau and Jacob. Esau's the eldest son, so he's the person who should inherit the land of the father according to the rules at the time. He's a big, strong guy, likes to go hunting, but he's a bit stupid. He goes out hunting one day, he gets lost, he comes back late, he's starving, hungry. And his younger brother Jacob says to him, listen, I can see you're hungry. I'll give you this little bowl of food that I've made if you give me your inheritance. And the older son says, well, I'm not going to get my inheritance for another 40, 50 years. Like, fuck that. That's a long time away. I'm hungry, yeah, give me the food. And the end result is that Esau's kids and Esau's grandkids will be poor. That is what's happening now. That is what is happening now. The rapid compound interest growth of the very rich is driving your family out of the ability to own assets. That means in the long run, not just your kids and your grandkids, but your whole community will not own assets in 40, 50, 60 years. That means we'll have no middle class. If you have no middle class, then you have nobody to drive spending, you have nobody to drive economic growth. And if you want to see what a country looks like when it has a very small middle class, you can see that. Go to India, go to Brazil, go to Johannesburg in South Africa. Countries with no middle class generally provide extremely low quality of economic life for ordinary people. And if you think that can't happen in this country, go read Charles Dickens, because it happened here 100 years ago and it can easily happen again. So to conclude, compound interest, it feels like a route out of poverty for everyone. In reality, it is the exact way that the rich outbid you and your kids for resources. Compound interest will lead to the rich eating the middle class and poverty for your kids and grandkids. The only way to fix this is to change the tax system, to stop taxing ordinary people so much and tax the super rich more. If we do that, we can improve economic conditions. If we don't do that, there will be poverty, more and more poverty in this country. Fight back, change the tax system, reduce inequality. It's the only way to avoid poverty. Thank you for your support. Send this to your friends, send it to your mum. Take care.
All right, I have no clue how. I'm so curious. If you're a fan of mine, I don't know how you watch stuff like this. I don't know who the fuck I appeal to sometimes. Holy Christ. What? He's like the, what was the name of that crazy Wolf? Professor Wolf? Was it Richard Wolf? The leftist econ professor that I debated one time and barely survived without roping? Jesus. Okay. The lesson to this is compound interest is evil, I guess, and it causes wealth inequality. Be careful. Maybe he's saying the exponential growth for the rich makes them buy all the assets, which increase at the price of all assets, which renders the compound interest growth for the poor meaningless. As the rich have greater exponential growth in money, I'm being charitable. Why would you even call this compound interest? I'm sure there's probably a better, like the way that I conceptualize this, and I'm sure in actual econ you could probably explain this better, but there are no limits to the amount of capital that an individual can own. And capital has become more and more and more and more productive through time. So the ownership of capital seems to confer huge advantages to the person that owns that capital. So you have to find ways to collect taxes from those people more. So for instance, if you could take a person who cuts down trees and this person could be a bad tree cutter and they would earn $24,000 a year. And then you could take somebody who's the biggest, buffest, strongest tree cutter in the fucking world. They're the best one. And instead of earning $24,000 a year, maybe that guy earns like $80,000 a year, but that's it. Or you could take a dude and give him $1 million and he could invest in $1 million worth of companies and make some amount of money. Or you could give him 100 million or $1 billion and he could invest in, his profits would just go up, 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 up. Like the capital has become more and more productive, I think, such that if you own capital, you're making more and more money on it, right? Like owning one car manufacturing plant probably confers a greater advantage than owning like a sewing loom shop or something than it did in the past. And individuals, capital can highly concentrate to a few individuals who earn more and more as a result. And there's like no cap to that because it's not like you have to do anything to deploy your capital effectively and earn money from it. I don't know what the fuck any of this is with fucking compound interest though. It's the most retarded coupling of that concept. It's just a basic finance math concept to anything that's stated in this video. It's just, dude, I'm just permanent. Fuck, dude. I can't handle this. I'll answer your question, but do you not think wealth inequality has increased between the upper middle class? Yes, it has. It's not because of compound interest, though. That's so stupid. It's such a simplistically retarded way of looking at things. It's like asking like some guy doing a video like 30 minutes on how like twirling your mustache makes you more evil And that's the reason why the planet is, you know, having a bad time with global warming. And then somebody's like, well, don't you think that like global warming has gotten worse? It's like, yes, there's no connection there between those two statements. I think what makes Destiny off-putting for some is that he is the well actually guy. I'm not well actualing though. Fundamentally, this video is fucking retarded. It's not like, well, he kind of oversimplified some things and he's missing the point, blah, blah, blah. This guy's saying that like compound interest is the determining thing, the thing that explains why wealthy people and the gap between the wealthy and the middle class is growing. It's just dumb. This video is stupid on every level. It's not a good simplistic explanation of literally anything. It's not a good explanation for what's going on in society. And it doesn't give you a good way to combat, I think, the current societal problems. Or if it does, it's in a super lucky roundabout way. Like, for instance, higher capital gains taxes, I think would probably be a good thing, at least in the United States. I can't speak to other countries at all, but in the US, I think having a higher long-term capital gains rate, I think would probably be good. Literally not the point he's making. The point he's making is that rich people and whatever bad, and then here's one concept that I dug out of my year one finance book, and I'm going to twist this into the craziest fucking thing ever to make it sound like I'm giving you some astute analysis based on my background that I've completely fucking fabricated to convince you that I have some insightful take on econ. Destiny gets upset when someone criticizes wealth consistently. This is guilt. The angriest thing about that statement that you're making is I know that your mommy and daddy have a net worth that's like 20 times mine. That's like the most irritating part about that fucking statement is how much of a trust fund baby I know you are for the fact you type something so fucking stupid in my chat. Any thoughts on the consumption tax? Econoboy has been talking about it lately. Nope. Is it something more than just an increase in the sales tax, or what else? Oh boy. Apparently a bunch of his coworkers at Citibank called him out on what he said. Basically, he was never that good of a trader, but he said, yeah, there's an FT article on it, but I don't need to go into his background and shred it or whatever. Just what he's saying on his face is stupid enough that...
I want to start with you, Gary.
I love that you came to that conclusion, my man. My dad was successful at one time, but not since the 90s, and not anywhere near your wealth. I don't even know what that means. Not since the 90s? What did he get so wealthy then that he retired? And now your whole family lives in mansions and pools, swimming in gold, richy rich? Please respond with your description of the difference of effects on compound interest instead of a dumb as fuck ad hom for the love of God. Compound interest is what he described in the beginning of the video, that when you invest money and you earn interest and the interest is reinvested, that when the interest is calculated next time, your principal balance has grown, not simply due to the fact that you should be investing more money, which you should, but also because your investments are reinvested as well. And then the new principal that you calculate the interest payment on is higher, and you're getting more and more and more, and it's compound. It's an exponential growth curve instead of a geometric growth curve or whatever the fuck. I don't remember what the non-exponential one is called. But wealthy people in society have whole different ways of deploying their money in ways that they can earn money that I don't think has to do with compound interest, unless you're going to torture the fuck out of what compound interest means. At Destiny, the difference of pressures. Destiny, that was his exact point, LOL. If you incorrectly link it to some other econ concept, then you don't get to claim that that was your point. No, his point was to take some thing and then to torture and stretch it to all reasonable inference or past any point of where anybody would recognize it as being compound interest, and then try to explain the wealth inequality through that. It was no. The point he's making is that people who say that compound interest will easily make the middle class rich are retarded. Yeah, but nobody says that. That compound interest is just a reality of investing, and it's a good thing to keep in mind, I guess, as you invest. But it's the mathematical consequence of reinvesting dividends or having capital appreciation in an account that pays interest. It's not like a goal. My goal is compound interest. Compound interest is just a result of what happens when you continually invest money and save money for retirement. What? Okay. Oh no, wait, really? Uh-oh, hold on. Okay, I'll do one hit piece video on him for 1 minute. Hold on, just because this sounds really funny.
Now I speak Japanese really well, and I speak Spanish pretty well, and I speak Italian.
You replicated in later life with language acquisition.
Yeah,
If only we could all relax in, such productive ways, huh?
yeah. Well, I'm not sure it's the most mentally healthy space to be in, but it works for me. And now I speak Japanese really well, and I speak Spanish pretty well, and I speak Italian and French, Portuguese. Okay, I've done German, I've done Arabic, I've done a bit Chinese. That shows you the situation of my mental health, probably the number of languages that I've been
It's getting
studying.
really bad now.
Yeah.
Ci sarà un'edizione in italiano?
Yes, the Italian edition is coming out in April this year. I'm hoping they'll bring me over to do some interviews, but I'm definitely going to Japan.
Dicami in italiano però, eh?
In italiano?
Sì, dicami.
Non so italiano, recente.
Tutti I dettagli necessari per questo bellissimo libro.
I'm looking forward to the Italian one. But I don't know. It did really well in Spain, actually. And I went for...
What did this guy say? He spoke 10 languages, 15 languages? Get me the fuck out of here, bro. Get this. He's a fucking... fuck me, dude. I'm good. I'm good on this. Whatever this guy is.
Spanish.
But I will watch him debate Ruben so I can actually off myself on stream. Somebody said, no Bannerino. I don't know why you said no Bannerino. I would never ban you for this question, but I will ban you for saying no Bannerino. I'm just kidding. How do you deal with the need for year-over-year growth in finite markets? I have no idea. I think that's a question that economists have been asking for a long time because they figure that at some point, I don't know how true this is. You're in abstract levels of macro econ that my brain isn't even remotely considered because I don't have the background to do it. But my understanding is that the economy runs on this blanket assumption of 3% year-over-year growth, and that at some point that's going to slow down. And if you have a capitalist investing economy where everybody's capital is looking for some sort of return on investment, and that growth isn't happening, that something really bad will happen. But that's an issue I think that economists have been having for a long time, but that investment opportunity hasn't disappeared completely yet. I don't know what will happen when it does. I have no idea. I don't know if capitalism demands it. I don't know if there's a lump of labor fallacy there where, well, maybe we can ultimately continue to grow productively by investing in new technologies always. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think that's a big economist question that I don't know if his qualifications are legit, but he's great. I don't think his qualifications are legit. Apparently that FT article says that 8 of his coworkers came out and said that he lied about him being the most profitable trader. That was fucking bullshit. And I read that the thesis on his paper, chapter 1, he talks about, it was the first few paragraphs of chapter 1 or the intro or whatever. He's saying that the reason why he made so much money is because he bet that wealth inequality were going to keep interest rates low after 2007, 2008. And that was how he made all his money. Unless there's a more sophisticated investment strategy in there. Wow. Interest rates from the U.S. Federal Reserve are going to be low after one of the largest crashes in the history of all financial markets? Holy fuck, is this guy an actual psychic future teller? How could he possibly have known? Is he reading the tea leaves? Is he from Harry Potter? My God, what an ingenious fucking assumption. Good for you. I don't care. Okay, don't get me that triggered. All right, we'll listen to a fight with Dave Rubin, though, because I hate Dave Rubin even more, so...
It's an incredible book. It's sold buckets of copies. Number 1 with a paperback. On the front, it says, an unforgettable story of greed, financial madness, and moral decay. Now, you went from a council estate, working class council estate in Ilford in Essex, sort of east of London for Americans. You rose to become Citibank's most profitable trader in the world, but you grew increasingly disgusted by what you saw as the blatant inequality of the system that you were gaming. You had a breakdown, and then you quit, and you're now an avid anti-inequality campaigner. You think there are fundamental changes required in the system, centered around redistribution of wealth and resource, or the whole thing will collapse. So, starting with you, how much did that resonate with you, what Bill Burr was saying?
Well, I come from a poor background. I come from a poor background in East London. My friends and my family still live in that background. So, these stories of mum skipping meals so the kids can eat.
Wait, hold on. I misheard that.
With you, how much did that resonate with you, what Bill Burr was saying?
Well, I come from a poor background. I come from a poor background in East London. my friends and my family still live in that background. So
Why does if he made $23 million in a year trade, why does his family still live there? Why not move them out, bro? Sorry. I'm sure there's a reason. Nothing to do with the video. Isn't the compounding effect part of why wealth inequality is increasing in absolute terms? How can we counteract this effect if we agree that wealth inequality is bad? Is it relative or absolute wealth inequality that what is bad? I think it's relative wealth inequality is a bad thing. It drives a whole bunch of bad things in society. You can't have the rich getting ultra rich while you're not ultra rich. Don't like it's not good. Like the growing divide is bad. I think isn't this what the Gini coefficient or whatever measures? I don't know how you counteract that other than redistributive effects from top to bottom through higher taxes. But everybody wants to make like some fucking grand new ultra scheme for taxation of the billionaire, blah, blah. Like just bump your capital gains rates up, bump your long-term capital gains rates, and bump the highest marginal brackets for your income tax. I don't know why you wouldn't just try that. I don't know why there has to be some new complicated billionaire wealth tax. Just bump your higher tax rates a little bit up. If you see capital or income shift to other parts of the economy, then see what tax rates you can bump up there as well. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a better idea than trying to invent some new complicated tax scheme that nobody's going to fucking go for anyway and has no political viability regardless.
You know, these stories of mum skipping meals so the kids can eat, people not being able to put the heating on in the winter, that's common. That's really, really, and I think it's important that we say that in spaces like these, because now I exist in these media spaces, and I've been to these fancy universities, I've worked in the banks. A lot of wealthy people don't see that's happening.
What about companies that offshore wealth storage? I think I joked about it earlier because it's impossible, or it's not impossible. I joked about it earlier because it's hard to do, and I said it sarcastically. I do think there should be some kind of global harmonization for tax rates. I do think it's bullshit that companies like Ireland can make a lot of money just because they have a highly preferential environment to for capital investment or for financial storage or whatever. I don't know, whatever Ireland does to be such a preferential environment for corporations. I don't know I'm sure you could do that locally to some extent, like in your country, like you have a rule saying you can't have a primary headquarters or you can't move so many of your, you can't move so much money outside of the country, whatever. But I don't know, I think shit like that should be heavily discouraged. No offense to Ireland, but I don't think that you're generating any healthy product for the world when the way that you compete with everybody is just by having a super highly preferenced tax haven for everybody. I think that's bullshit. But if you were to do that, I'm pretty sure this would like fucking destroy Ireland because I think the majority of their money comes from that, isn't it? But
you know, in this country, I'm talking to you right now, half the country struggles to simultaneously feed the kids and turn the heating on. That's the truth. And I know it's getting away in America as well. So of course it resonates with me, you know.
Wouldn't tax increases in general just be wildly unpopular? How do you even begin to approach this? I don't know. I mean, I have ideas, but I don't know what would work or not because it's never been tried before. But in my opinion, taxes on the left, they need to stop talking about taxes as a punishment and just view it more as an investment in the things that enables the more productive members of your society and the wealthy members of your society to exist without people eating them. Like, if you earn a fuck ton of money, if I earn a fuck ton of money, the only reason I'm able to do that is because there's some level of subsidization that's going on between other people. The only reason that people that can work lesser paying jobs in my city on Miami Beach is probably because of some amount of government subsidy, or the fact that any rich person can literally afford to do anything in this country. It's built on the backs of however many other lower class, working class, middle class laborers in order to do that. Like paying taxes there, it's not a big deal. It's not impacting your lifestyle whatsoever as a wealthy person. And it empowers you. It enables you to do all those things. But the problem is people on the left, especially you fucking retards in chat that obsess over guys like this, view taxes as some sort of righteous punishment, as some way to even the playing field. We need to fuck over the billionaires. It's evil to have that much money, blah, blah. It's not evil to have that much money. You should celebrate the fact that they have that much money. It's good. I think it's good that Bill Gates created fucking Windows, okay? We'd all be on Mac OS, whatever bullshit, which sucks ass, okay? Or at least it did in my day. Maybe it's not as bad anymore. And I think Amazon is cool. I think it's a good company. I think social media is cool sometimes, although not anymore today, actually. Fuck all of that. It needs to be nuked off the face of the earth. The thing is, though, is that when people hit that level of wealth, we should all feel like we're a little bit bought into it. Right now, nobody gives a fuck if the wealthiest companies in America make a fuck ton of money, because, I mean, what do you see for it? It's not like we get a ton of reinvestment by these companies. We don't have a good way to collect taxes from them and redistribute them, so we don't feel that good for these companies. But if the right is going to attack taxes, which they do always, and if the left is going to talk about taxes like it's some kind of fucking punishment for your wealth, which is the cringiest fucking way ever to view it, then of course nobody's going to want to ever fucking raise taxes. But stop demonizing wealthy people. It makes you look like a fucking retard, especially when 90% of you are trust fund babies anyway. And I say just look for more ways to tax them so that we can help everybody do good. The rising tide, okay, drowns all the fucking retards.
Of course it resonates with me. The poverty is out of control.
I mean, Dave, the argument will be, well, I'll let you espouse the argument you want to espouse, but one of the big arguments, of course, is that what billionaires like Elon Musk have done, for example, is they build tremendous businesses which generate tremendous amount of jobs for people to then earn good money and do exactly what a lot of people here can't afford to do. So therefore, they can be a force for good, albeit, obviously, you're going to get bad apples. How do you see it?
Sure. Well, first, let me jump to the part that I agree with, which is that, of course, there is inequality, and would we all...
I just cannot believe how brave Dave Rubin was to, why would you even take on a one-on-one debate with anybody? Easily one of the dumbest guys. One of the dumbest guys in the world. Like, you could put him next to RFK brainworms and next to CJ, the 13-year-old kid with brain cancer, and Dave Rubin would have like less gray matter mass than both of them combined. That's how fucking retarded this guy is. I can't believe he had the bravery to go on Dave Rubin. Oh boy.
Like to see poor people have more, and is it possible that some people have quote unquote too much? It's hard to agree what that might be, but I'm sympathetic to that argument for sure. And that's in my country, and that's across the pond right here. That's number one. The question really is the method that is going to free the most people and free the markets and allow people to...
Okay, fuck. I'm not gonna pause this much to do these retarded questions. Ireland must be doing some value-add things in their economy only because they have the wealthiest demographic on earth, and it would be wild if they achieved that just through being a tax haven. I'm pretty sure that is the case. I think Ireland, like, a huge section of their economy, I think, is just being a tax haven, or it was. I don't know if that was starting to be addressed a few years ago or not, but it's, yes. It's really stupid.
Might be, but I'm sympathetic to that argument for sure. And that's in my country, and that's across the pond right here. That's number one. The question really is the method that is going to free the most people and free the markets and allow people to flourish. I believe in free market capitalism. I want there to be as much competition as possible. I don't have a problem with billionaires because, generally speaking, billionaires have built things. I mean, the idea that Elon Musk is devoting this amount of time to working for the government to help make sure that the government is more efficient is pretty spectacular. If I could jump back to the Bill Burr clip for just a moment. I know Bill a little bit. We've traveled in some of the same circles. I mean, he's surrounded by all millionaires. It used to be that Bernie Sanders was always complaining about millionaires. Then Bernie Sanders became a millionaire and he started complaining about billionaires. The idea that if you just somehow magically took out, well, he also made a...
Also, when people talk about millionaire, they're talking about 8 or 9 figure net worth, or they're talking about high 6-figure, low 7-figure income. Millionaire does not mean that you have $1 million net worth, especially if you're fucking 80 years old. This is such a retarded fucking attack on Bernie or any other person who's like, oh, they're a millionaire. Dog, if you're 79 years old, or if you're 75, or you're entering retirement and you have $1 million in the bank, that is not a millionaire. In the same way that like a 27-year-old earning $600,000, $700,000 total compensation or whatever could be considered a millionaire, depending on how much money they've saved or how long they've been working with it. It's fucking stupid.
A violent threat there, but let's put that aside for a moment. But if you somehow took these people out, or if you took 10 billionaires and you took all of Jeff Bezos' money and you took all of Peter Thiel's money and Mark Zuckerberg, et cetera, you took all of their money and you redistributed it throughout the system, that somehow 3 years later things would be better, I think is a completely faulty argument. There's way more things as it pertains to education and teaching people proper value of money and what economics really is that I think is way more important than just demonizing the...
Oh my God, I'm gonna kill myself listening to this horrible fucking conversation. He's right in that you just taking all the money from billionaires is retarded. But the idea that like if we just do financial education for everybody, that's going to fix everything, that's also fucking retarded.
Billionaire class or any other class. Class warfare does not work and will ultimately lead to kind of what his bad joke was about, which was violence against these people.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. Our sponsors help us to bring it to you for free. Support for the show today comes from ExpressVPN, which I'm especially happy about because I use it myself.
Cool.
We're all living more and more of our lives online, but despite private tabs and incognito mode, your internet service provider can still see and record everything you do or say online.
Wow.
What they can do with your data depends on where you live. In the USA, your data can be bought and sold to whoever will pay for it. But you can stop all that with ExpressVPN. It's an easy app that reroutes 100% of your online traffic through secure encrypted servers so that not even your internet service provider can see what you do online. It secures all of your most sensitive information anywhere you connect. I travel all the time, and like many people, often use the garbage public Wi-Fi to check the news and continue my arguments on X. Not only is it slow, it's also one of the easiest ways for hackers to get my data. With ExpressVPN's encrypted connection, the hackers can't hijack my connection or steal my information. ExpressVPN is the #1 rated VPN by CNET, PC World, and The Verge. It also works on 8...
Wait! I'm sorry, I was only half paying attention. I thought he said the only way we're supported now is by our subscribers, but they have sponsors. The fuck?
devices at the same time.
He might be biased now. I don't know if I can trust him.
So you can secure your whole family in one go. I'm living proof that it's very easy to use. And right now, you can get an extra 4 months of ExpressVPN for free. Find out how by scanning the QR code on screen here, or go to expressvpn.com/peers. Once more, for the people at the back, scan the QR code or go to expressvpn.com/peers. That's PIERS. Now, on with the show. Gary?
I was a trader for a long time, and I worked with a much older trader. In the book, it's called JV. He had a good quote about these kinds of opinions. He said, opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one. Now listen, I don't get paid to have opinions, okay? I was one of the best paid and most successful traders in the world, for one of the biggest banks in the world.
Probably not true. Also, you don't get paid to have opinions. You literally have a fucking YouTube channel. You literally get paid to have opinions. Wait, or was this thing like years ago? Okay, 2 weeks ago. You literally get paid to have opinions. What the fuck are you talking about?
I put bets. I place bets. And I've been betting for 14 years that the working class in my country and the working class in your country will collapse into desperate, worsening poverty year after year. I'm a multimillionaire from doing that, from betting on that. Traders message me every day. They say what's going to happen. I say it's going to get worse. I've been betting on it since the beginning of COVID. I've made millions on it. All the best traders know. Let me explain to you how economics works, all right? You guys work in media, right? I work for Citibank. You call up Citibank and you say, I want an opinion on what's going to happen to the economy. They pay me £2 million a year. Do they give me the phone? No, they don't. Kids like me don't get the phone. We get me.
Wait,
I work for Citibank. You call up Citibank and you say, I want an opinion on what's going to happen to the economy. They pay me £2 million a year. Do they give me the phone? No, they don't. Kids like me don't get the phone. We get the money, okay? I shouldn't be here. Doesn't make no sense for me to have a YouTube channel. Doesn't make no sense for me to be here. I got paid millions of dollars a year to bet on the collapse of your working class, okay? I've walked away to come here on this show for free because I want to tell the public, the American people, this gets worse. This gets worse. I'm not just saying it, I'm betting on it.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So explain what you mean. So when you say you've been betting on it,
Okay, right. So I started
explain to people who don't know the system.
I started working in 2008, which, as you all know, is the Lehman crisis,
Right.
the collapse of the economy. My job
Too big to fail.
My job was betting on interest rates. As you'll know, in 2008, all the interest rates went to zero. Then my job is when will the interest rates come back up, which is kind of a proxy for when will the economy recover. I'll give you a history lesson on it, right? In 2008, everybody said 2009. In 2009, they said 2010. In 2010, they said 2011. Every single year, up until 2020, they said rates will recover next year, until 2020, when they finally said rates will stay zero forever. We're bad at this. We're bad at this, okay? I'm fucking good at this, all right? Why did interest rates not recover after 2008? Because people weren't spending money. Zero interest rates are supposed to get people spending. Why did zero interest rates?
Okay. You know what? I changed my mind. We are going to read on this guy because he cites his background so much. Gary Stevenson claims to have been the best trader in the world. His old colleagues disagree. What is the truth behind the Inequality Campaigners Citigroup memoir? For someone who rails against the inequities of modern capitalism, Gary Stevenson sure does spend a lot of time boasting about the money he made on the trading floor. For many fans of the trader turned inequality campaigner, Stevenson's self-proclaimed success on Citigroup's foreign exchange desk is precisely what has made him such a compelling critic of the widening gap between the rich and the poor. Stevenson's straight-talking videos have earned him legions of followers online. His recent memoir, The Trading Game, has become a bestseller, and just last month made the long list for a business book prize in a certain salmon pink-colored newspaper. Are they referencing their own paper, the Financial Times, or? Having made millions at one of the biggest investment banks in the world, the son of a post office worker from the East London suburb of Ilford certainly has a knack for describing the cloistered world of big banks in terms anyone could understand. Here's a flavor from a typically four-letter word-filled recent interview. You become the best trader in the world for one of the biggest banks in the world, and then somebody sits you down and threatens you, basically like a gangster. It kind of makes you realize that they're the same fucking people. But was he as skilled a trader as he claims? Because, as you may have noticed, Stevenson doesn't claim to have been merely good or even great. He claims to have been the best. It's an assertion that he has made at least as far back as this 2020 column in The Guardian, published at the height of the first coronavirus lockdown, in which he wrote that he had been Citibank's most profitable trader globally. And the bold claim has only gotten more colorful in the telling since. Take this characteristically brash excerpt from a video interview earlier this year. I'm not fucking Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not here to talk about morality, okay? I was the best fucking trader in the fucking world, and I'm the guy that calls it right every fucking year. God damn.
As soon as you understand that all the best...
Every fucking year. Where's my... Hold on, I gotta see this one.
I'm not fucking Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not here to talk about morality, okay? I was the best fucking trader in the fucking world, and I'm the guy that calls it right every fucking year, okay? If you do not fix inequality, your fucking kids...
God damn. He must be a billionaire by now then, I guess, right? If he can call it every single year, right? Certainly he wouldn't stop at just having $5 million or $10 million. He should be a billionaire, right? If he calls it right every fucking year, right? Show me that mega yacht. Or at least a private plane. Jesus. These claims struck Financial Times Alphaville as odd the first time we heard them in one of Stevenson's videos. Stevenson was still in his 20s when he left Citigroup, or Citi, is that their short thing or whatever? A young age to even be handed high enough risk limits to smash the lights out so dramatically. We wondered if the statement would be a little more qualified in the trading game, which chronicles both Stevenson's heady rise on Citi's trading floor and his eventual acrimonious exit from the U.S. banking giant. Maybe Stevenson meant he was the best trader in Citi's foreign exchange division, or perhaps just in the STIRT desk, that's short-term interest rate trading, where he worked. It would still be no mean feat for such a youngster. But no, right at the start of the book, Stevenson coolly explains that he's about to tell the story of how he became Citibank's most profitable trader in the whole world. Stevenson does put a bit more flesh on the bones of this claim later in the book, giving the hard figure of a peak $35 million of profit achieved for the bank in 2011. Yet, while the number may sound big to the man on the street, it didn't strike us as that wild for that era. Notably, it was only 2 years after Citi paid Andy Hall, the legendary oil trader nicknamed God, an eye-watering $100 million bonus. And note, that was Hall's personal share of a much higher profit generated for the bank. After getting in touch with some of the professionals who played the trading game alongside Stevenson, it seems our skepticism may be warranted. FTAV, Financial Times Autismville, has spoken to 8 former employees of Citi who worked with Stevenson at various points in his career, including some of the most senior managers in the bank's FX division. All of them, foreign exchange, all of them disputed his claim to have been the bank's most profitable trader. More than one of his former colleagues on the trading desk alleged that Stevenson had delusions of grandeur, while several said they doubted his record would have put him in the top 10 in Citi's FX division at any point. For his part, in response to questions about his claims, Stevenson told us, "I stand by what I've said in the book. I have nothing further to add." Citi declined to comment. Fiction or nonfiction? Of the 8 traders or former traders who agreed to speak with FTAV, the majority worked alongside Stevenson on the short-term interest rate trade desk. I think that's what it was. Somewhat counterintuitively, given it has interest rates in the name, STIRT desk sits within FX rather than rates trading at major banks such as Citi. The desk deals in FX derivatives such as forwards, contracts between 2 parties to buy or sell currency at a fixed price on a set future date. Some of those we spoke to also provided clear inspiration for characters in the trading game, in which names and biographical details have been changed, but often not dramatically so. Take, for example, Kent Bray. Bray worked alongside Stevenson for years and goes by the nickname KB. He appears to have been the inspiration for JB in the trading game. In the book, JB is a trader with a hefty cocaine habit who first takes Stevenson under his wing when he lands on the STIRT desk as an intern. Speaking to Financial Times, Bray candidly confirmed that he had a problem with cocaine during this problem? Yeah, more like an opportunity with cocaine during this time as a trader, and that he had been in recovery for years. He now spends his time mentoring people working in the city, not Citibank, but the city proper, or an actual city, counseling them on how to avoid succumbing to the pressures of such a high-stress career. Here's a picture of Stevenson and KB together on Citi's STIRT desk back in the early 2010s. KB insisted that he wasn't trying to run Gary down, nor was he bitter. He recalled, however, that he was stunned when he first heard his former deskmate's claim to have been Citi's top trader. I contacted him and I said, "Is this book fiction or nonfiction?" And he said, "It's nonfiction." Oh, the city is the nickname for London. Gotcha. Bray explained, adding that he told Stevenson that there was no way he was ever even in contention for the title of the best trader at Citi. In Bray's telling, a $35 million profit and loss year just wouldn't come anywhere near that accolade in the years they worked together. It sounds like a lot of money for people not in the trade, he said, but in all the time I was at Citibank, that's not going to make you the most profitable trader globally. Oh, fuck, and I'm so sorry. I wasn't even factoring this in my mind. When this guy is saying $35 million, I originally assumed that he meant that was like a bonus he got paid for being so profitable. Is he just saying that he made the company that much money in a year, that $35 million was just the money that he made? So that's not even on his, so we have no, that's on its face a retarded fucking claim. Because that doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of how good of a trader he was or the size of the portfolios he was managing or what. This is literally not, okay, whatever. It sounds like a lot of money for people not in the trade, he said. But in all the time I was at Citibank, that's not going to make you the most profitable trader globally. As well as speaking to people who worked alongside Stevenson on the trading floor, we spoke to several senior managers at Citi who he reported to during his time at the bank. One of those was Jeff Feig, who was global head of foreign exchange at Citi for a decade between 2004 and 2014. Like Bray, Feig appears to have inspired a character in Stevenson's book. He did okay, but he wasn't exceptional, and over his career as a trader, he wasn't even close to being one of the stars. Keep in mind that career here, we're talking like 4 years, right? As a trader, he wasn't even close to being one of the stars, Feig told us. He was someone we liked, who we thought had talent and smarts, but wasn't nearly fully developed. On Stevenson's assertion that he was one of the best, Feig was damning. His claim about being the most profitable trader at Citi in any 1 year is laughable, and clearly just an outlandish fib. Another of Stevenson's old bosses remembered him as a nice kid, but quickly added that Gary was at no point ever even the highest P&L among the 20 to 25 traders who made up Citi's global STIRT team, let alone the whole bank. He didn't even have the risk limits to be the highest producer in any capacity, he added, describing Stevenson's $35 million profit and loss in 2011 as not even close to the highest profit in STIRT that year. This makes sense too, because for a new trader, they're probably not managing like a $10 billion fucking trade or some hundreds of billions of dollars of assets or whatever, right? They're probably limited in terms of the amount of capital they even or managed assets, I don't know what you would call them, that a company like this even has access to, right? Taking too much credit. Just about everyone we spoke to had one big issue with Stevenson's claim to have been Citi's most profitable trader, or the fucking top trader in the world in 2011, as he also put it. How would he even know? In the trading game, Stevenson explains that Citi had a website allowing the FX traders to see each other's profit and losses. It wasn't just the STIRT traders who could see one another's P&L, it was all available on an internal website that everyone on the whole floor could see. Several former FX traders we spoke to disputed the claim, saying the system did not allow for quite this level of transparency. Feig told us that he actually built this website. As he remembers it, the system allowed FX traders to look at the P&Ls of their immediate team, while desk heads had a wider view of how their global business was doing. So someone like Gary could certainly see how the guys on his desk were doing. Maybe he could see how other forward traders are doing. He couldn't see anything else, Feig said. Crucially, the emerging markets currency traders had different systems to those trading major G10 currencies, such as Stevenson. He sat 10 feet away from the Russian trader and the Polish zloty trader, but he would have no idea what their P&Ls are, Feig said. 3 other traders from this time agreed with Feig that the P&L system would not have allowed a STIRT trader to see the whole of FX. But even if, for the sake of argument, we accept Stevenson's claim that this internal system allowed anyone to look at the P&Ls across the FX trading floor, rather than just his specific sub-desk, everyone we asked was clear that there was certainly no way for any trader to bring up a wider list of all the individual P&Ls of everyone across every division of the bank, such as credit, rates, and equities. Yeah, Little Dragon. I don't want to say that because like I don't want to talk too far out of my ass. But you said some guy in chat said there are trades called carry trades, which are literally just easy money but has extreme tail risks, which sounds like the kind of trade this guy put in. If you literally just bet that the rate stayed at zero, I know because when I was an intern on a trading desk, even I was allowed to put in a carry trade with 150 million of notional risk. Yeah, like theoretically, if there's some like standard trade that your company makes of like fucking 250 million or some bullshit number, but the risk is considered like very low. And there's just like crazy tails, like really, really far, like into like some crazy like scenario happening. I imagine that you could make a trade that would be incredibly profitable, but it wouldn't necessarily be impressive. It's just because you're starting with a really high value dollar amount, and then it's just not a very risky trade. But I mean, we don't know more without more information from him, obviously. Although obviously he's claiming that he makes it sound like he made these huge, crazy investments and that nobody else was, but. It's not like it's the Oscars or the Grammys or something, said Bray. Feig was more blunt. There is a 0% probability he could know where he ranked in terms of trader profitability in Citi. To get a sense of how Stevenson's $35 million profit and loss in 2011 would stack up against the money he made in another desk, Financial Times spoke to a credit trader whose time at Citi overlapped Stevenson's. Amusingly, Stevenson pours scorn on credit traders throughout his book, at one point alleging that they were all pricks, while frequently deriding their supposed penchant for pink monogram shirts. The former corporate bond trader explained that he vaguely remembered Stevenson from the latter's time as a grad trainee, noting with a chuckle that the East Londoner was very cocksure for a new arrival on the trading floor. Stevenson notes in his book that he spent his first week as an intern on the credit desk, so perhaps they crossed paths during that period, who knows. The ex-credit trader described Gary's central claim as horseshit, noting, by way of example, that the investment-grade credit traders in New York averaged around 30 million to 40 million profit and loss back then, and that was just the average. There were people making hundreds of millions in a year, he said, noting that the volatility around the Greek sovereign debt crisis yielded some traders outsized profits in 2011. The whole thing is just ridiculous. Flowrider. The credit trader also noted that not all traders are created equal. He explained that some areas of FX and rates benefited from a massive amount of what traders call flow. Essentially, a constant stream. Oh, okay, so this is what the guy in chat was talking about, and then what I was wondering about. Essentially, a constant stream of incoming orders from buyers and sellers that traders would match up, compared with some of the lower volume areas of riskier credit. That flow equals a kind of quasi-risk-free P&L, and so your payout ratio is much lower, he explained. In other words, the steady work tends to attract lower remuneration than those profits achieved by risking your own capital, taking bets on the market, so-called proprietary or prop trading. Many of the former FX traders we spoke to explained that different seats within the STIRT desk enjoyed more flow than others, with traders dealing in derivative contracts linked to more liquid currencies benefiting from a naturally higher level of client activity. This means that the trader could make high dollar amounts of P&L simply from market making. Market making means that you're basically fronting some level of safe capital because the investments on both sides are highly liquid, and you're basically just helping people buy and sell to each other and then scraping a little bit of money off those buys and sells off of highly liquid, highly stable investments. So it's like free money, basically, right? One of Stevenson's old colleagues broke it down in language the great British public can understand. Someone selling Oasis tickets is going to make a lot more profit than someone selling tickets for a band you've never heard of. You're covering the article chat? Good. By 2011, Stevenson was overseeing the so-called short-end euro book. This meant that he dealt in derivative contracts for counterparties looking to buy or sell euros in the near future, 30 days or fewer. One of his former bosses described it as arguably STIRT's best franchise, his term for the market-making side of trading, because there are a lot of clients looking to exchange euros in the near term. You could easily end up with a P&L in the top 10 of the STIRT with that book, he said, without really having to swing the bat. We didn't pay him like that as one of the top 10 because we also understood the level of franchise he sat on, he said, arguing that the majority of money Stevenson made in his peak year probably came from market making. Cringe. In the trading game, Stevenson himself notes that the junior euro trader was a good job in which a prior trader had made 100 million one year, with the demand for short-end swaps translating to a hectic amount of trading activity. Quote, the end result is, with no exaggeration, that the junior euro trader does more trades than all the other traders on the desk put together. If you can hold it together, you can make a lot of money. This is true, but then again, and I'm out of charity now for this guy, what a retarded fucking thing to say. Although maybe there's more no, actually, I'm sorry, there is no charitability, right? When you're looking at profits that you're making from a particular thing, like your big thing isn't just the amount of money you're making, it's your volatility, your risk assessment, right? That's where the truly brave money is made, is on your more riskier things. It's what I imagine for people who get paid a lot here to make money is on looking at things that like a retail investor and arguably even other institutional investors wouldn't be able to accurately call. But to be a market maker, market making is free money. You're just there to provide liquidity and then insure against like highly insane events that you probably, if the event happens and it's too insane, you're probably just going to get fucking bailed out anyway, which would happen in 2007, 2000 anyway. Yeah, your risk adjusted return. Rather than money earned from market making, however, Stevenson primarily attributes his 2011 windfall to an outsized bet on interest rates staying low. It is one of the book's pivotal moments, providing a through line to Stevenson's campaigning on economic inequality today. He writes that while many of the rich guys on the desk lazily assumed that economic recovery and interest rate rises were on the way, Stevenson could see the pain of the families of his old friends at Ilford were still going through and bet the other way. Among his former colleagues, there was a lot of debate over the accuracy of this account. Several argued that there were plenty of other traders betting that interest rates would stay low around that time, while one former colleague noted that the short-end euro book Stevenson was trading that year was by its very nature not particularly interest rate sensitive. Feig, however, said that it was certainly possible that Stevenson made money that way. He noted that while STIRT traders had a ton of good flow, they also made a lot of prop bets, and the money earned from flow in a seat like short-end euro could give a trader cushion with which to take proprietary views. Either way, Feig was clear that the money Stevenson made that year was not exceptional. $35. There's no way he was the most profitable trader in the world, he said. The artist. So if not Stevenson, who was the most profitable FX trader in that era, when talking to former occupants of Citi's STIRT desk about the years that Stevenson was there, one name kept cropping up. Holy shit, Rob Noor? Oh, Rob Lloyd. Now retired from the city, Lloyd is by all accounts a no-nonsense Liverpudlian who traded sterling derivatives at Citi. He had a largely unspectacular career until the financial crisis rolled around. Then, in 2008, his intricate knowledge of the financial plumbing that underpins markets helped him make a killing when it all started to break. Lloydie, as KB affectionately refers to him, was known for taking big prop-style bets rather than happily clipping the spreads from market making. And in the years during and immediately after the financial crisis, Lloyd regularly put up annual profit and losses well in excess of $100 million. Several ex-Citi traders told us. Sarah Butcher of eFinancial Careers also identified Lloyd's widely acclaimed trading record in a piece that was early to kick the tires on Stevenson's claims. If there should be a book written about anyone, it's Rob, said one of his former colleagues. The thing is, there sort of is a book written about Rob Lloyd. It's called The Trading Game. Lloyd is quite clearly the inspiration for the character of Bill, a no-nonsense scouser with a journeyman career. Bill joined Citi's Sturt desk as its sterling trader and made a fortune for the bank during the financial crisis. As a further possible hint, Stevenson's book gives Bill 3 middle names, Douglas Anthony Gary. Lloyd's 2 middle names are Douglas Gary, according to the FCA register. Bill is cast alongside Stevenson himself among the main heroes of the story. At one point, Bill gives the protagonist a piece of advice that he describes as the most important thing I ever heard. Essentially, get your head out of economics textbooks and take a look at the real world if you want to understand how the economy really works. Stevenson is also pretty clear that Bill was the best trader on Sturt, describing him as an artist who built palaces out of his trading portfolios. Bill, like the real-life Rob Lloyd, nets more than $100 million a year on several occasions, and Stevenson even writes that in 2010, he became the most profitable trader in the bank for the 3rd consecutive year. But by 2011, the year Stevenson claims that he took his mentor's crown as the most profitable trader in the bank, Bill is in semi-retirement, having stopped quoting the Sterling FX Swaps book and shifting to just take massive bets on the UK economy. The trading game suggests Bill didn't have a good year, citing money lost during the market ruptures following the Fukushima nuclear accident and a misplaced bet on economic recovery, that meant he was barely keeping his head above water. Some of those we spoke to were adamant that there was no year that Stevenson outranked Lloyd. Others suggested that, sure, maybe there was a year when a trade went against Lloyd and his P&L took a hit. He did a lot of risk after all. We have not been able to ask the man himself. Lloyd did not respond to several messages and voicemails asking to have a chat about it. All right, fuck this guy. Stevenson did leave with his millions of dollars worth of stock, however, and he's apparently now making good money as a popular commentator on economic disparity, telling the FT in an interview earlier this year that he is now one of the best paid economists in the entire fucking world. While Bray described the claim that Stevenson became the best trader in the world from betting on a broken economy as delusional, he said there's still much for which his former colleague deserved credit. What has to be acknowledged here is that a kid from a pretty humble East End upbringing gets into the bank trading game. He does make money, and he does write a good book, Bray said. Where I'm a little bit offside is parts of it are not true. Okay. Fuck this guy.
Traits not get people spending. I had the radical idea of going out and asking people, what do you think people say when I ask them, why aren't you spending more money? What do you think people say?
They're not spending more money because they probably don't have more money.
Yeah. And when I looked at their financial situations, what I saw, this is in early 2010s, I was in my mid-20s, I saw a generation of people, my parents' generation, who owned property, and another generation of people, their kids, my generation, who will never own property. The middle class are losing their homes, the middle class are losing their wealth. Where is that wealth going? Where is that wealth
And your
going?
argument is it's going just to the super rich.
Where else?
So they're getting. So Dave, I mean.
Well, I think it's important to make a distinction that first off, what's happening in your country and our country are not exactly the same, but largely over the last decade, until the last month where we now have Donald Trump, both of our countries have been going in the direction of more big government, more regulation, more of the middle management nonsense that Elon Musk is uncovering every day. So I would be for removing as much of that as possible, removing as much of the waste. I mean, we are now seeing with USAID and everything else that Elon is uncovering with Doge, that the amount of waste and absolute fraud, and I would say criminal negligence in the system is a huge root of it. So I agree. Yeah. So again, I agree with some of the symptoms you're talking about for sure. The question is the diagnosis. So how do you then say to the person that can't afford the house, how do you afford a house? Well, one way you might want to do it is I would, if I was in charge of your country or mine, I would lower taxes for everybody. I would do a flat tax for everybody. Make sure so whether you're a billionaire or whether you make $100,000 or 75 grand, whatever it might be, you're going to pay whatever the number is. We can all agree on the number. Let's say it's 10%. The billionaire is still paying way more in taxes. But this type of class warfare that we've been caught up in, where the common phrase always is, well, they have to pay their fair share. Well, who decides what the fair share is? And guess what? Someone will always want more of your money.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't like opinions. I'm not really interested in opinions. I make predictions. What you've said you want is what you're going to get, right? Because this is the policy of the new government. Do you think living standards for your average working class American are going to improve?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, that's good. Put this on YouTube. Put this on.
There. Oh my God, it's like fucking Dumb and Dumber. There are so many stupid things about what Ruben just said. I mean, like you could argue. First of all, flat taxes are stupid because wealthy people spend a much lower overall percentage of them. I'm just explaining marginal utility over and over again. Spend a much lower percentage of their overall money or income or wealth or whatever the fuck you want to say on things that you would pay a tax on, right? So a 10% flat tax hurts, this is why it's called regressive, hurts working class or middle class people much more than it hurts super wealthy person. Super wealthy people can afford to pay a higher percentage of their taxes and not have it affect them that much. If you earn $30,000 in a year, $3,000 is going to affect you way more than a guy earning $1 million a year paying $100,000. In fact, the $1 million a year earner might not even notice $100,000 depending upon what his lifestyle is like. Whereas a $30,000 a year, $3,000, that's a huge chunk of change. You just fucking lose the taxes. Flat taxes are fucking retarded for that reason. Number one. Number two, if you wanted to get technical, you could argue that if you're trying to make housing more affordable and then you do a tax cut, I mean, if you do tax cuts and you don't pair them with spending cuts, you just have more money in the economy. Now everybody's trying to buy a house. That actually puts upward pressure on housing prices, which make them more expensive, which who knows if it even help the affordability of houses at the end of the day. But I don't know. But it's just going to be both these guys arguing the ideological extremes that they both inhabit. Okay.
Standards for your average working class American are going to improve.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, that's good. Put this on YouTube. Put this on YouTube because I'll call back.
Why are you convinced they won't?
Listen, I've got a video.
Because Trump in his first 3 years before the pandemic, that was happening.
Yes, absolutely it was.
So why can't he do it again?
I've got a video, June 2020, beginning of COVID, right at the beginning of COVID, okay? What's the total US government deficit now since the beginning of COVID? Do you know? It's $13 trillion, okay? That's $40,000 for every single man, woman, and child in the entire country of the United States of America. Every single man, even the babies, all right? So if you're out there watching and you're not $40,000 richer now, somebody's got your $40,000, okay? Who's got that money now? So the most amazing thing I've ever seen at the beginning of COVID, we all knew governments across the world were going to give these unbelievable, enormous amounts of money out. The UK number is just over £1 trillion, by the way. These enormous amounts of money being given out. Nobody asked the question, who's going to end up with that money? Nobody. This is 40.
Everybody knows where that money is going. The money was always going to go to businesses at the end of the day. That's why money is given out. It's to stimulate consumer demand. That's literally the whole point. That's what people say all the time. Well, if we give the money to everybody, they have a higher propensity to consume. They have a higher propensity to spend the money. That's literally the whole point of providing stimulus. What do you mean nobody's talking about it? That's the entire concept of why stimulus is given, is to give money to people so they fucking spend it.
Be given out. Nobody asked the question, who's going to end up with that money? Nobody. This is $40,000 for every. Imagine if the government came and took $40,000 from everyone in the country. And gave it to somebody. Nobody did the analysis. I did the analysis.
Can you point, if you know your history, can you point to a period in UK history, for example, where massively punishing rich people by massively taxing them has actually benefited the country?
He's not going to use the US example, right? He's not that ideologically purchased, right?
Listen,
I can't really.
My dad was born in 57.
Oh, he doesn't even have masters? Wait, was it a master's or a PhD in fake econ? I don't know what the fuck he got his PhD in. He doesn't know any history? Not a single example? Nothing? What did he waste all of his fucking time studying for? What was he doing in school all day?
7. He worked for the post office, Royal Mail, 35 years. Never once earned more than the average wage in the country. He was able to buy a house, support family. My parents are retired now. They own their own property. They're financially secure. That's not possible now. He lived in an era where the top rate of tax was much, much, much higher. The 50s, the 60s, the 70s, in the UK, in the US, the top rate of tax on large estates was significantly higher. And in that time period, it's not a coincidence, ordinary people could afford to buy houses. They could afford to, listen, this is not normal, okay? Read your history, right? You read Charles Dickens? Charles Dickens? In this
Why would you bring up Charles Dickens? Maybe you're just trying to message to the public. Okay.
What we're talking right now, 150 years ago, ordinary men and women lived in desperate poverty, okay? That's going to happen again. That is what, it's not normal.
Hold on, but making the argument that 40 or 50 years ago the tax rates were higher and somehow that made things better. First off, times change. The giant middle bureaucratic state that Donald Trump is constantly fighting was not nearly as big 50 years ago. So again, I'm talking about this from an American perspective.
What? Oh God! What is that?
As we're uncovering this waste, the idea that, oh, only if we took 10% more or 20% more from this person or that person, I don't think makes sense. As it pertains to COVID, I would say, yes, COVID was a giant wealth transfer from the poor to the rich. I was against lockdowns. I was against putting people out of work. I was against virtually all of the regulations after 2 weeks to slow the spread. So again, that's giant government programs creating the conditions that create all of the economic and social and cultural problems that we have. So the solution to that, I think, is exactly what we have seen for the last month, which is let's deregulate.
Also, hold on. Wait a second. Is any of this guy's background true? He just said that his dad, did I miss a part? His dad worked a job. He got a pension. He retired with a house and all that. He went to fucking Oxford. Is that just a normal? Does everybody in the UK go to Oxford? Is that like a really easy to get in college if you're a local student? Is any part of this guy's background true? No, I don't know if I even believe that. But maybe that was after he got rich. Okay, maybe it was after he got rich, the pension. Okay, I don't know.
Regulate. Let's figure out where the fraud is. Let's give people more of a chance. We can deregulate the banks so that they're willing to loan again, so that people can buy houses again. Let's stop printing money so interest rates go down and inflation goes down so that people can actually get loans, so that America loans right now are something like 6-7%. It's very hard to buy a house at that rate. When I bought my house, only a couple of years ago, it was around 2.9%. Well, then it's valuable because, okay, you're going to pay a little penalty and hopefully your house goes up over time. So just removing the government and the regulations and the waste.
God, he's so fucking retarded. Oh my God. I feel like I'm oscillating between hating both of these people. Oh my God. I don't know if I'm going to become a fascist or a communist by the end of this conversation.
That to me is the answer, not just I need that guy's money and I really...
Hold on. He's like, hold on, Dave. Let me tell you about my friend Sputtin Rob. Okay. Let me tell you about my friend in the old limey town of Ludwig, down in the shimy, brimy valleys of London, okay? Sputtin Rob, okay? He's about to rattle off the most irrelevant anecdote. I'm just kidding, he's not.
Really would like it.
Could I ask a question? You've accepted there that during COVID there was a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, and all the statistics support that. After COVID, after lockdowns, after reopening, we know there's been a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. We then saw a massive fall in living standards for the middle class and for the poor. Do you think those two things are connected?
From an American perspective, I would say those things are largely connected because they decided to print money relentlessly. That's what we did. We did the Inflation Reduction Act, which was actually an inflation increase act.
The average increase in...
He doesn't even know why it was called the Inflation Reduction Act. And this fucking retard doesn't even know what the Inflation Reduction Act was. Oh, it's all good. Definitionally, now whether it ended up doing that in practice, because I guess maybe something got changed, the reason why it was called the Inflation Reduction Act wasn't because it reduced inflation. They just named it that for a good PR. But it was supposed to be because whatever spending provisions were in that bill were supposed to be offset by revenue-raising provisions. So it was supposed to be deficit neutral. That's why it was called the Inflation Reduction Act. It didn't reduce inflation, but it was supposed to be deficit neutral. That's why it was called that.
In US billionaires' wealth in the first year of COVID was more than 100%, doubling of wealth. What's the US billionaires' wealth?
Reduction Act, which was actually an inflation increase act.
The average increase in US billionaires' wealth in the first year of COVID was more than 100%, doubling of wealth. What's the US GDP rate of growth? 3%, 4%? At what rate does a billionaire's wealth increase? These guys doubled in 1 year.
Well,
I'm trying to think. By a super extended chain, that could be related, I guess, arguably. But I mean, like, cost of stock or the current trading price of a particular stock is what is largely determining the net worth of these guys, which isn't necessarily tied to GDP at all, right? I don't know if I would compare these two things. I don't know actually why I'm giving this guy any credibility. I wouldn't compare these two things. These are just numbers. Today is the day of just torturing numbers, I guess.
But Gary, isn't that a bit disingenuous? Because the reason their wealth increased so exponentially in that period was just because stock prices flew up, right?
I don't think it's just that.
Wasn't that how they accrued the extra wealth?
I've got a video explaining exactly this, all right? Listen, you lock down the economy, okay? Ordinary family, my parents, how much their expenses decrease.
But you're arguing that the billionaires locked down the economy? I mean,
I like how Piers is the only one that gave. Yeah, Piers is correct. Now this guy's going to tie it into some wacky, crazy concept. Oh boy.
Ordinary family, my parents, how much their expenses decrease.
But you're arguing that the billionaires locked down the economy? I mean,
No, not all. I'm just trying to explain what happened, all right? You locked down the economy, okay? My parents, how much is their expenditure for? Basically nothing. Basically nothing, because their expenditure is entirely rent, mortgage, food, bills. Like, that's poor people's expenditure. Right. Whose expenditure falls during COVID?
The people who normally would go out and spend a lot of money.
People who have a lot of luxury spending.
They were accumulating more money.
So if you ban luxury spending and you replace it with, as you say, government printed money, what's going to happen? That printed money is going to go to people who work in the service sector. They're going to use it to pay their bills. It's going to go to the rich people who own the corporations, who own the houses, who own the debt, and they can't spend it. What you have is basically a massive cash injection from the government through the poor to the rich. Listen, we saw the biggest and fastest ever transfer of wealth and increase in inequality in the history of our nations. And it was immediately followed by an inflationary crisis and a collapsing cost of living. This is the clearest proof you'll ever need. You don't need me, somebody who's made millions of pounds betting on this. The clearest proof you'll ever need of the absolutely bloody obvious fact that if you massively increase inequality, you will decrease living standards for working people.
Well, it
and
seems to me that the part we're agreeing on is that we all seem to agree that giant government spending and giant government control over the economy and over our lives ultimately is bad. I don't blame.
Yeah, I don't really see the correlation between that reality, which we can all agree to, and the fact that it's the billionaires' fault for getting richer.
Exactly.
When actually a lot of that wealth was just accrued from.
Listen, I'm not Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not a moral philosopher. I'm one of the best economists in the fucking world.
Wait, we didn't watch a clip from this earlier. Does he just use this? Does he just use this fucking line? Oh, God, kill me. It's okay.
Reality, which we can all agree to, and the fact that it's the billionaires' fault for getting richer.
Exactly.
When actually a lot of that wealth was just accrued from.
Listen, I'm not Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not a moral philosopher. I'm one of the best economists in the fucking world at this. Okay, I'm here to tell you what's happening. If you
one of the best economists in the world. He was one of the best traders in the world. One of the best economists in the world. Is this guy even 30 years old yet? Wait, how old is this guy right now? Oh my God, he's a fucking genius.
increase inequality. These guys, they don't just sit on that $10 trillion. They don't just sit on it. They use that to buy assets. They buy the assets that ordinary American working families need. The reason why American families, their kids can't afford homes is because they're now competing with a billionaire class that is $10 trillion richer. $10 trillion, that's $40,000 for every UK person, every American man, woman.
Well, I would say that even if we were to take that premise as true, so I'll go with you on the premise. The fault,
Dave Rubin is fucking, he has no idea. I wonder if at any point Dave ever wanted like, fuck, why am I here right now?
would not lie within the billionaire doing something that is right. So if we're in agreement on that, I think that's
positive. But where does the poverty lie?
So then the issue really is, what would you want a competent government to do? And I think what you would want a competent government to do is make sure that there is as little waste as possible, that we're not spending money on trans comic books in Peru, which is literally what we're finding out right now, and we're going to perhaps audit the Fed and find out where the trillions of dollars to Ukraine went and everything else. And if we have a proper accounting, the same way you run your household and anyone would run their business.
I like how this guy also, what is it? He brings a pen with him just to show how, bro, kill me.
Then we could probably address some of these issues. But I'm glad to hear that we're not really blaming the billionaires who are just playing the game as the game is set up.
And what you want to change is the system.
Yeah, look, I'm not here to blame nobody. Listen.
Does he write notes on his hands? Is that his like tick, his thing?
I'm a rich person. You're a rich person. I just met you today, but you've got a very nice suit.
I'm doing all right.
He's doing good after that $5 million Russian injection. Don't worry. He's doing okay now.
Listen, I'll tell you what a competent government would do. A competent government would stop this massive increase of inequality from accelerating out of all control.
How would you do it?
So do you agree with Donald Trump's policies on that? Because by lowering taxes, by lowering regulation, by getting rid of inefficiency, I mean, I'm with you.
How rich is Elon Musk? How rich is Elon Musk?
He's worth trillions. I don't know.
Okay, let's say he's worth $300 billion.
Wait, did he just say? Bro. What? Wait, I misheard. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention. It sounded like Dave Rubin just assumed that Elon Musk was worth trillions of dollars, but I misheard because I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry, guys. I'm doing you a disservice by not listening carefully.
So do you agree with Donald Trump's policies on that? Because by lowering taxes, by lowering regulation, by getting rid of inefficiency, I mean, I'm with you.
How rich is Elon Musk? How rich is Elon Musk?
He's worth trillions. I don't know.
Okay, let's say he's worth $300 billion. Okay, what is his passive income going to be on $300 billion?
I understand. So you want
$15 billion a year. $15 billion a year. Okay, what's $15 billion a year per week? We're talking about something like $300 million a week.
Well, what's your point?
These guys have no choice but to buy up the assets. These guys will buy up all of the assets. If you
That's what? Wait, what? He's talking about appreciation of Elon's stock. He's not using that to buy assets. Most of that is. Oh, bro, get me out of here, dude. I can't. Oh God, get me the fuck out of here. Please get me out of here. Please get me out of here.
allow these people to be extraordinarily rich.
But I understand why this is the grift. This is what everything goes on. I'm understanding more. Every time money goes into the economy, if the wealthy get wealthier, they're always buying assets that they're renting out to the poor. This is why he has to have the take that all lending is essentially predatory, because anytime there's a lender, there's going to be somebody borrowing, and borrowers always pay interest to the lenders, and the lenders are always going to be wealthy people. And as the economy grows, more money always goes to the wealthy people, and they're always using the appreciation of their wealth to buy more and more assets that they have to basically loan to poor. I understand the grift now. I get it. I get the grift. I get it. Okay, here we go.
They're not bad people. Well, in some cases they might be. But also, I don't know these guys, right? They will buy the assets. Ordinary people.
Let's take Musk. It's a good example, actually, because he's somebody who's created 5 companies now, or part created some of them and created others from scratch. And they're some of the most extraordinary companies in the world. Tesla is the #1 green energy car company in the Western world. And it's where people want to take cars because it doesn't gas guzzle the way that the conventional petrol cars do. You've got Neuralink, which is trying to help paraplegic people be able to communicate. You've got Starlink, which is part of his SpaceX thing, which is an extraordinary development. It's been used in war zones and disaster zones to save lives. You've got his taking over of X, which may not seem as
Jesus, Piers, we get it. Okay, you love Elon Musk.
important, but actually restoring genuine balance of free speech to let conservatives have a voice, I think has been really important to democratic discourse in America in particular. And he's got other things that he's done. And you put it all together and you think, what's this guy done? He's created these extraordinary things. He's now planning humanoid robots to take away a lot of the drudgery of our lives. He wants to colonize Mars because he thinks that one day we're going to need another planet. He's probably right about that. He's got a massive brain. He's got all this cash. And rather than sit there and kind of do what you think he's doing, which is just, all right, I need to spend billions on making myself even richer, he's gone to work for the government for free as an unelected guy, just trying to stop the ridiculous overspend of the government. And in the process, he's employing several 100,000 people in America, and he's a South African immigrant to America, right? It's hard to think of a more positive story, and yet, by your criteria, you would say, well, you know...
Why are we obsessing with the British guy anyway? I don't know, because people in my chat have been saying, look at Gary Economics, look at Gary, and I just haven't looked at it. Now today I did for the first time, and I wish I hadn't, because now there's going to be this like young Bernie Sanders. It's probably 20% of my subreddit is enamored with this fucking guy.
Sorry, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth, and I don't want to miscategorize you, but to sort of portray him as one of the bad guys, I think is probably very unfair.
I ain't here to call. I never met Elon Musk. I ain't never met the guy. He could be a nice. Have you met him?
I met him once last year.
Well,
For a
look,
couple
if
of
he
hours.
wants to copy my book, I'll sign one for him. We can send it over, right? Look, listen. I'm not here to attack Elon Musk.
But you know my point.
I'm here to
can afford a copy.
I'm
He'll
here
buy
to
it.
protect my people's ability to feed and house their children, and they're losing that.
Right.
They're losing that. And listen,
But why is that Elon
we
Musk's
are not-
fault? Because he's
I ain't saying
employing
Elon
hundreds of
Musk's fault.
thousands of
This
people.
is because wealth inequality is rapidly increasing, and wealth is being sucked out.
I hear you, but why? But what can he do about it?
I don't expect Elon Musk to do anything. I'm not here to talk to Elon Musk. I'm here to talk to the American public and to tell them I get paid millions of pounds a year to watch your class.
So what's the answer? Give me your answer. If you're now,
can only be taxed.
let me make you the treasurer.
With any of the things that Donald Trump's doing as per the economy or anything that we've seen in the last month,
I don't think that they're going to work. I don't think because I am somebody who has made millions of pounds betting that growing inequality will reduce living standards, and he's cutting tax on the rich. Listen, let me ask you a question, Mike.
This guy doesn't even have any policies or anything to talk about. He's literally just a fucking retard. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have compared him to Richard Wolff, because I think Wolff at least had like even if I thought it was stupid, I think he had some kind of consistent framework by which he views things. It's kind of like Marxist and goofy, but this guy is actually just fucking retarded. I wonder if he paid some kid to fucking do his work in school for him. I don't know what the difference is. Apparently it's philosophy of economics. Is that just what they call all economics in school, or is economics and finance so heavily divorced? I mean, he worked in finance. This is just fucking retarded.
Be accepted. If we massively increase inequality, that can decrease living standards.
He's just like a one note song where somebody has like their particular pet issue. I guess for him it's inequality, and then every single analysis he does is just going to be on this one talking point over and over and over again. Does he have solutions for it? Well, maybe. I mean, we're only 25 minutes in. Maybe he'll give some kind of policy solution. Like, well, we'll see.
If we massively decrease tax on the rich, people who make passive income of $200 million a year, do you think that would affect living standards of the middle class?
I don't know.
If they increase their ownership of wealth, if they increase their consumption of goods and services, where does it fucking come from? Listen, we have sat here in the last 5 years. We've watched the biggest deficit in living standards. If we massively decrease, to your question, Mike, you've already accepted. If we massively increase inequality, that can decrease living standards. If we massively decrease tax on the rich, people who make passive income of $200 million a year, do you think that would affect living standards of the middle class?
I don't know.
If they increase their ownership of wealth, if they increase their consumption of goods and services, where does it fucking come from? Listen, we have sat here in the last 5.
He almost made a good point. Like, if you decrease taxes on wealthy people, it doesn't flow down to poor people. That's fucking retarded. When conservatives say like trickle down economics, that's retarded. But the problem is, if you give more money to rich people and all they did was increase their consumptions of goods and services, that would help poor people, right? But that's not what wealthy people do. When you give them a fuck ton of money, they don't consume with it, they invest with it. It's just capital, and then that just makes more money for them in the future, which is kind of the problem in a roundabout way. But I don't know what he was getting at there.
5 years, we've watched the biggest ever increase in millionaire and billionaire wealth in the history of this planet.
Actually try to summarize his position. I guarantee you don't actually know what his theory is. It sounds like his entire theory is based on, so wealth inequality is bad for, I don't know if he said, if he has more like political analysis, but wealth inequality is bad, period. you've got super wealthy people and you've got super poor people. The way the economy is set up is every single part of the economy seems to essentially be set up to do massive wealth transfers from poor people to wealth people. One of the wealth transfers we've looked at are mortgages. When you get a mortgage, you're paying interest to a wealthy person. He went into that video about how mortgages are increasing and the amount of mortgages are increasing. So that means when the mortgage gets bigger, even more wealth is going from poor people to wealthy people. And then when you grow the economy and the economy is growing by 2 or 3%, and you see the wealth of the highest billionaire class going to 5%, when they make all that extra money, the only thing they can do with that extra money is to buy up assets that other poor people need, which means that the poor people are going to have to take out loans to get those assets, and the poor people are going to be taking out loans from the wealthy people. So as the ownership class increases their ownership of everything, poor people have to take out even more loans from wealthy people, prohibiting their ability from loaning anything or from owning anything. And as they take out more and more loans, they got to pay more and more interest, which goes into growing the wealthy class even more, and then they get even bigger, and now they've got to buy even more shit with all their extra money. And that's how the entire economy is able to grow, is through the wealthy people snatching up everything and then I guess like selling loans back to poor people to give them access to it, basically, is what it sounds like. It sounds like what his whole economic theory is. I don't know, maybe there's something more to it, but we'll see.
Here in the last 5 years, we've watched the biggest ever increase in millionaire and billionaire wealth in the history of this planet, immediately followed by a collapse in living standards of the middle class, a complete collapse in the ability of ordinary people to own assets, and nobody's drawing the connection.
Gary, let me ask you a hard question. Can you point to a country in the last century where socialism has worked?
I will point to a country where taxing the rich at a fair rate led to good living standards for working people, United States, 1955.
Dave?
Well, I would say, again, in light of the
At least they gave a year, I guess.
fraud and criminal negligence that has been exposed, that is being exposed literally the second as we are reporting this, the idea that we would be going in right now and saying to certain people, you should...
That's pretty much it. You don't see that as a problem? The analysis that I just gave is retarded. It's trying to connect way too many concepts together in a really stupid way, and it's not narrowing in on the actual things that might be causing problems. Like, I don't even know if I necessarily agree with the idea that mortgages are a wealth transfer from rich people to poor people. I don't even know if selling mortgages is a great wealth generation tool at all. I feel like this is a service that banks provide for fucking legal reasons. Like, I don't think anybody has a dream of like, I want to sell mortgages when I get older, I'm going to get so much money fucking selling mortgages to people. I'm pretty sure there's way more lucrative investments around other things. I actually don't know the primary mechanisms through which banks even make money on mortgages, unless it's through like, maybe like, are they allowed to like fractionally reserve lend or something maybe? I don't know, something like that. There are issues in society that have to be dealt with. Wealth inequality is a problem. Arguably a really big problem, but taking this utterly simplistic analysis of all of our financial systems and saying it all boils down to this one thing, 99% of the time it's going to be fucking retarded.
Give the government more money and the government will be a good steward of those dollars, I think is completely ridiculous.
So we can probably all agree about the waste, right? I mean, that's a given. But
sure, but
the principle of what Gary's talking about.
I am for everyone keeping as much of their hard-earned money as possible. Piers, my guess is you have more money than me. I don't deserve your money and I can't have it.
I sincerely hope I do, and no, you
Dude, mortgage products are a huge investment vehicle. Do you not remember 2008? So you've been typing retarded shit in my chat all day. You're permabanned now, okay? Mortgage products are not a huge investment vehicle in and of themselves. 2008 was not just about mortgages. It was about those things being chopped up and put into derivative markets, which did become huge investment products. Yes. The banks that sold mortgages wanted to get those mortgages off the books as quickly as possible because the mortgages were not profitable. They were only profitable when they sold them to investment banks to turn them into derivative products. Rope, thick.
Exactly. And I don't deserve your money either. And I think that the overall concept here, which is that somehow if we can just take from these people, it's not to say that the system is perfect.
I'm not trying to take...
Why did my robot stop picking things up? What did I do? Toggle personal robot port. Never mind. Fuck you.
The rich. I'm not trying to take from the rich.
But you just said you wanted to get back to 1950s rates of tax.
I am trying to stop the redistribution. I am trying to stop the redistribution that is happening in front of our eyes. The American middle class, the British middle class is dying, their wealth is being sucked away and is being owned by an international super rich elite who pay no tax, while the people watching this show pay 40%, 50%, while billionaires pay nothing.
Let me ask you a difficult question.
But I don't understand.
Let me ask you a difficult question.
Billionaires pay nothing.
No,
They pay all sorts of taxes.
I've got a difficult question, which is, there are a lot of people watching this agreeing, and obviously people disagreeing as well, but two questions. How much money have you made in your life?
Yeah.
And how much have you given away?
I'll give you an excellent answer to that. If you want to know how much money I've made in my life, it is exactly there in my book, The Trading Game. We'll go here today, and you'll see it's exactly it. You've got to read the book.
Well, I'm not trying to read.
Can you give a succinct explanation as to why wealth inequality is bad in general? No, I can't. I don't actually know what the underlying mechanism is. I just know it's been explained over and over again, and I've just accepted it as a truth. But I'm pretty sure that wealth inequality is worse for society than absolute poverty. I don't know why. But like, if you could choose between everybody having $10,000 or some people having $100,000 and like a couple of people having $1 million, apparently the inequality in and of itself drives a whole bunch of negative things like like crime and stuff, at least. I don't know if it's predictive of other social ills, though. I don't know what the underlying theory is, though. Never read into it deeply.
Read it right now.
You not read the book?
No.
Well,
My son's
afterwards.
my son's rave about it. But,
Listen, I made a lot of money, enough to quit my YouTube
how
channel.
much? Just give it to me straight.
Enough.
It is simplistic, but that is the only type of messaging that could possibly reach the masses. No one is watching your 5-hour analysis of things. Sure, and then society is doomed. Then fuck democracy. Because my analysis might take a long time, but guess what my policy prescription is? It's super simple, okay? Bump your long-term capital gains up. Bump your highest tax rates up. If you have to do some other tax to capture some external market behavior because people are trying to money, then do that, okay? Their idea of we need to install some incredibly convoluted wealth tax, where I have no fucking idea how you would even begin to administer that or figure out how it would work. And they don't either, okay? And then the billionaire tax, which wouldn't even raise that much fucking money. Like, none of these other outlandish, crazy ideas have any chance of even being implemented. Even if they were implemented, they probably wouldn't even raise that much money. Like,
enough to quit, run a YouTube channel, and have a family. That's enough.
30 million, 50 million?
Listen, do you have a spreadsheet? Do you have a spreadsheet?
No.
I don't have a fucking spreadsheet. All I know is it's enough. I can go to Nando's.
You said
when
you
I
put it in
want.
the book, though, how much it is.
Yeah, but I didn't add it all up. You read the book and add it up.
Well, how much is it?
I don't fucking know. Listen.
What, 10, 50,
Listen,
100 million?
It's enough for me to live
I'm
the
just
rest
kidding.
of
I'm
my
not trying
life.
to trap you.
No, it's the 10, 50, 100 million. It's enough. Enough for an ordinary person to live the rest of their life.
How much is that?
Family. The number I had in my head when I went into banking, was £2 million.
2 million.
And it was enough. For me, that's enough.
You've made more than 2 million. You were Citibank's top guy.
is that true in the UK? Could you live off of the returns comfortably? £2 million, would you plan on that for the rest of your life to retire at 25 or 30? I feel like 4 to 5 million is going to be your lower bound there. I could be wrong though, but 2 million? I feel like you're... Yes, but not in London. If you're looking at a 7% return, plus you're going to have to draw down during market downswings and upswings, I guess, so that wouldn't matter. Plus taxes. I don't know what capital gains looks like. That's like 80 to 90,000 pounds a year. I guess on your own, if you're not living in London. Yeah, I guess you could. What if he inherited a house? He said he didn't.
I don't have this stuff up. For me, it's enough. I've got enough money. I've got enough to do the work that I do.
Do you give a
to
load
tell
of it
ordinary
away?
people.
Do you redistribute your own wealth?
That is the money that funds my YouTube channel. Listen.
Well, do you
Tell me this now, right?
When you sell a book,
Wait, the money that funds?
Was £2 million.
2 million.
And it was enough. For me, that's enough.
You've made more than 2 million. You were Citibank's top guy.
I don't have this stuff up. For me, it's enough. I've got enough money. I've got enough to do the work that I
Do you
do.
give a
To
load of
tell
it?
I think this guy is not even worth 7 figures. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm not trying to fucking do any. I think this guy's not even worth $1 million. Now I'm curious of what he even got paid at Citibank. He got a PhD he got a master's at Oxford in econ. Worked at Citibank for a couple years.
I'm not trying to trap you.
No, it's the 10, 50, 100 million. It's enough. Enough for an ordinary person to live the rest of their life.
How much is that?
Family. The number I had in my head when I went into banking, was £2 million.
2 million.
And it was enough. For me, that's enough.
You've made more than 2 million. You were Citibank's top guy.
I don't have this stuff up. For me, it's enough. I've got enough money. I've got enough to do the work that I
Do
do.
you give a
To
load of
tell
it away?
ordinary people.
Do you redistribute your own wealth?
That is the money that funds my YouTube channel.
The money that funds my YouTube channel?
Listen.
well, do you
Tell me this now, right?
when you sell a book, do you keep the money for the book?
If I give the money.
At a baseline, is it good or bad to you that a billionaire can sit on their money and generate more revenue than a working person? That's like a neutral statement. I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. If you have $1 million in the bank, or not in the bank, if you have $1 million in a retirement account, you generate more money on long-term capital gains than on average a worker. Is that bad? That's just with 1 million. You don't need $1 billion to out-earn an ordinary worker.
Anyway, YouTube channel. Listen.
Well, do you
Tell me this now, right?
When you sell a book, do you keep the money for the book?
If I give the money away, who does the fucking YouTube channel, Piers? Who pays you?
I'm not accusing you. I'm just asking you.
Listen.
Do you give any
Piers,
money
who
away?
pays you?
No, but
Who pays you?
No, but Gary,
Listen, you and I
Gary,
both know there's two ways to
The
run
reason
these,
I'm asking
okay?
you is
Look,
only because your position is that there should be more redistribution
Yeah, of
to
course there
poorer
should.
people from
Of
the
course
rich,
there
right? And you're a rich guy who's
Yeah.
made millions. Won't say exactly how many millions. I'll work it out when I read the book.
The viewer should also work out by reading the book.
Yeah, but you know, I don't think it's
he wants
unfair.
people to buy the book.
I don't think it's unfair to ask you.
Of course I want people
don't think
to
it's
buy
unfair
the
to
book.
ask you how much
Yeah.
you've given away.
Listen, this is the money. Who's going to pay for my kids?
What percentage?
I've
Forget
quit
how
my
much
job to run
money
a YouTube channel. That's the money that's going to send my kids to school, Piers. That's the money.
Okay, but
that's
that
gonna
does sound
cost my
quite selfish.
Look,
What? This is like, it's dumb, dumber, and dumbest. Pierce is unironically doing the socialism is when you redistribute all your money meme, which is fucking stupid. I think that Gary Stevenson, this is my answer. I think it's a good answer. Is you say, listen, I'm not going to give my fucking money away. Why the fuck would I? It wouldn't help anything. It wouldn't do anything. What you advocate for is higher tax policy that would help society. There's no prerogative for an individual to just give their money away. You're not accomplishing any of the things that you want to accomplish by saying that you should tax things more, right? It's like there's a 10,000 pound stone block that needs to be moved, and you go and tell 1,000 guys like, hey, we need to go pick that thing up and move it. Like, we all have to go and do this together. And they're like, well, I don't see you trying to move it on your own. It's like, no, of course not. I can't fucking move that. What the fuck would the point even be? Why would I walk over there and do that? I'd look like an asshole. What? This is such a stupid fucking argument.
I've told you before, I'm not Mahatma Gandhi.
But this guy can't. Wait, did we rewind a lot, or is he saying the same slogan a second time? Why am I living in crazy world? What the fuck?
I never pretended to be a good person. I was the best trader in the fucking world, one of the biggest banks in the world, and I made that money by betting the American middle class would be destroyed.
I get it.
I ain't here to be
He's like the Terminator. He's like Rubio. He's
Mahatma Gandhi. I ain't Nelson Mandela like you, boss. I'm here to tell the American public what's happening.
But do you think you practice what you're preaching?
What I preach is to raise taxes and reduce the growing inequality. That's what I preach.
there. You okay? Thank you. We got there. Jesus.
Listen, I ain't here telling people. I didn't tell you to give your money away. I didn't tell you to give your money away.
You want the power, but you are, because you want the power of the state, which has the guns, to say to Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg, we're going to take your money. We're just going to pick a number and decide how much to take. Do you give more than 1% of your money to charity?
I want the state.
You can voluntarily do
people
it.
from the rich.
But
And if they don't,
do you do any of that yourself?
Listen, I'm not here to tell anybody to give their money away. I'm here to tell people how to present.
Oh God, this is so stupid. Him giving all of his money away wouldn't help anything. It's not going to solve any of the problems in society. It's not going to solve wealth inequality. In fact, I mean, if he wanted to be cheeky, he could even frame it in if he gives all of his money away right now, all of that money would just cycle into the economy and it would be spent, and most of it would end up in the hands of billionaires anyway, and it would just grow wealth inequality. It would literally do the opposite of what I want to do, is by me just spending all my money. It has to come through government redistribution efforts. This is such a stupid fucking point. I can't believe he hasn't argued with this point before, though, to have like a snappier comeback to this.
Signaling 101. I mean, this is what the left
All right,
is.
listen, I'm going to go home and I'm going to bet on the collapse of the American middle class.
my
And it's gonna
God.
happen. And I'm here telling them it's going to happen.
He moralizes all this so hard. Ruben has brought up more quote unquote factual points. Every single one has been wrong because he's a dipshit. Then this supposedly super educated, super career oriented guy, or like he's worked in the industry or whatever.
Here telling
Sure,
them
but why don't you do that and
I ain't here
donate
pretending to be a
1%
good
of your
person.
salary?
I never said I was a good person. Read
Yeah,
the book, you can
well.
see. But I'm a good fucking economist and I'm going to be right. And you've made your prediction that living standards will increase in the next 3 years.
Well,
and I've made my prediction that they won't. And we will see in 3 years
Well,
who's
I can't
right.
speak to
And I will
what's
tell you
gonna
right
happen
now,
here, but
I
I
haven't
can
been
speak to
wrong
what's
many
happening
times
in
in
my
the past.
country.
Listen, you're from my country, okay? You know people that look like me and sound like me don't get a chance to make millions.
Oh my God, bro, this is so fucking cringe. Look, bro, let me just tell you, bro. Listen, bro, let me tell you, okay? Look, you don't understand. Blah, 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 blah.
Millions of pounds betting on the economy, okay? There's a reason I'm doing this, because I'm fucking good at it, okay? I don't need to be here. I could be on a beach in the Philippines.
I know lots of traders who come from working class backgrounds.
Who? Name one.
I know lots in the city.
Listen, I worked in Canary Wharf. I'm from East London.
I
okay?
worked in Canary Wharf.
A guy came up to me and he said, that's an interesting accent. Where are you from? I fucking worked in East London. Listen, Piers, I got a lot of respect for you, okay? You're an older man. Nowadays,
Whoa, that was brutal. That was brutal.
the city of London does not contain working class people. I've been there, Piers. I've been there. I was there 10 years ago.
There are no working class people in the city of London. Come on. I met loads of them.
I worked in Canary Wharf for 4 years. One kid come through once. His name was Tariq. I remember. The only working class kid I ever saw come through when I was there. One, Piers, in 4 years. In Canary Wharf, which is in East London.
Okay, so I'm still trying to wrestle with. All right, look, you're perfectly entitled to do with your money what you want to do. Okay, and you haven't demanded we give ours away. Fine. Okay, I get that. But what is your answer? I mean, if you had the chance now to run the Western world economically, give me the blueprint for how we stop going down what you think is an apocalyptic path.
Tax work less, tax wealth more. Simple as that. You can't have ordinary working people paying 40-50% while billionaires pay 5%.
But ordinary working people don't. But you mean the middle class, though? That's not working class. Working class people don't.
Pay 30.
It's kind of my policy position, I guess, kind of. I don't know if you necessarily need to drop ordinary income rates, but I don't know anything about income tax rates across Europe. They might be high, but I also don't know how capital gains are taxed in Europe. I imagine they have probably a preferential treatment like in the US. But yeah, cap gains rates up, higher marginal tax brackets go up.
40, 50% once you include everything. Once you include their VAT, once you include their income taxes, they do. Once you include their health taxes,
What would
it's
you be,
essentially a tax.
for a flat tax? Pick whatever the number is, 12% on
No, because it
everybody.
won't work. A flat tax obviously still going to work.
Why? You're
Listen.
gonna get
So what would you like to see? An
I
ideal
know you're
world.
an American. Okay, listen. Look at the history of my country.
Can you just? I just want somebody to explain to Dave Rubin why a flat tax won't work. I'm sure people have in the past. I wish the audience could hear it though, but
Okay? For hundreds and hundreds of years, a small, tiny, super wealthy elite lived the fucking dream while ordinary people live lives of desperate poverty. Okay? That is what's going to happen to your country, and that is what's going to happen to my country if you do not protect the working class from the rich.
But
There's
that's
no way to
exactly what
compete.
we're doing right now. That's what
Well,
Donald
we'll
Trump's-
see. We've
that's
made
what-
our
that's-
bets. We've made our bets.
That's what Donald Trump's entire movement is all
Okay.
about. It's a movement of we the people. And
Well,
by the
it's
way,
good
what you said
because-
earlier, Piers, was completely right. Pre-COVID, go to Donald Trump's State of the Union speech before COVID.
Yeah.
What does he do? He gets up there, talks about how great the economy is doing. Everyone knows
He was
the
gonna
guy's
get
true.
re-elected
And
by a landslide.
Yes, and the best part of the whole thing, he talks about lowest all-time Black and Latino unemployment, and the Congressional Black Caucus sat there like this because what they cared about really was keeping Black people as Democrats more than actually freeing them.
And one of the
economically
reasons
and
he
every
did
other
so
way.
well with Black voters and with Latinos in particular was they
didn't you say you wanted bigger tax-paying group of people? Yes, but in the U.S. and in the U.K., it is way, way, way different. At least that's my understanding. Like in the United States, even though people don't know how any of their taxes work, like if you earn less than like 40, 50,000 a year, your federal tax footprint at the end of the day is like zero. Like you, on average, I think the bottom 50% pay basically nothing in federal income tax. You just have Social Security and Medicare and maybe state tax if you live in a state that taxes, although I don't know what your state exemptions look like. I believe in most of Europe, if you earn 40, 50, 60K or euros or pounds a year, you're paying like 20,000, 25,000 in taxes. Like you do get taxed in European countries. You have no idea what federal taxes are like if you live in the United States as a working class person compared to what European taxes are. My understanding is, that's my understanding at least, is that like even like middle class and lower middle class and working class people in Europe all pay taxes. That's my understanding. I might have exaggerated a bit on how much they pay, but they pay considerably more, I believe, than the average worker in the United States.
remembered that whatever you think of Trump and what comes out of his mouth, they were better off under him than they were after 4 years of Biden.
Yeah, I also think it's sort of interesting that generally speaking, and you can check the numbers on this, but conservatives donate way more of their money than progressives and socialists, which is why, unfortunately, he can't tell you how much he's donated while he wants to take other people's money. You
I
want
don't
the
donate
state,
anything.
you
I'm
don't-
not
so you
here.
don't-
I'm not here to be
so
Mother
you don't-
Teresa. I'm here to tell the
Well,
American
it's
public
an
why they're going to
I
lose
guess
their
it's a
house.
little bit
Wouldn't
an
it be more
opposition as-
effective? I mean, would it not be more effective to say, and I'm going to lead from the front by redistributing some of my own wealth? Because there'll be people watching you go, hang on, Gary, you're talking all about redistributing the wealth. You want to see higher tax rates for the rich so that they have to give away more of their money, but you don't actually think you should be giving away any of your own.
Piers, I don't need the public to believe me. You're wealthy, I'm wealthy, you're wealthy.
I donated plenty of money this
It's not
year,
going to
man.
be us whose kids don't have their homes. I'm here to tell the American public the truth. I use my money to support my YouTube channel, Gary's Economics, which is watched by millions of people a week, to explain what's happening. People can listen to me
What
and
was
they can
it
protect
that-
their interests,
something-
or they don't have to listen, and
a
then I'll be in the
swi-
Philippines.
Okay, but a switch must have gone off on you when you were the biggest trader in the world, one of the most successful guys in the world, right? You're making all this money, presumably having a great life doing it, and then something switched in you. What was the moment?
Piers, I don't know what your childhood was like, all right? I grew up poor. I grew up really poor. Small house.
I grew up in
I don't think he grew up poor. I think he grew up solidly upper middle class, not even lower middle class, not even middle class. I think he grew up solidly upper middle class. I don't believe anybody that leans on their background this much and has fuck all to say about it. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I think he's like every other fucking lefty I've argued with, every other person who lies about their fucking background for some bullshit ass fucking credit. Like, you went to the wealthiest university in the fucking world and you went to Citibank right after. Fuck you. I don't believe this. I don't believe any of this. He said his dad worked and had a house and got a pension and all that, but I don't believe any of this. I don't believe it. I don't believe any of it.
Piers, I don't know what your childhood was like, all right? I grew up poor. I grew up really poor. Small house.
I grew up in a
next to the
country
railway.
pub. My parents worked 7 days a week, both of them. Right? We never had any money. I didn't go on a foreign holiday till I was 17.
So maybe you don't
I'm not saying I was poor because I wasn't, but I certainly there was.
Like, what does that make sense? He said he grew up in London, right? Or was it a neighborhood in London? His parents had a house. Is that? I thought houses in London were maybe 30 years ago. Maybe houses were a lot easier to get. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Not a lot of money.
But I don't
Well,
believe
maybe
it.
you don't need me to tell you then, but listen, I've been poor. It's fucking hard. It's fucking hard, okay? And I worked really, really, really fucking hard, and I was the best student at one of the best universities in the best country, and I worked my tits off, and I got the best job, and I became the best trader. And what I made my money on was understanding that the British working class, the American working class, ordinary, hard-working people like my dad, like my mum.
This is what I would love to hear, but nobody here has the bare minimum qualification to even ask him this question. I would love to hear somebody here ask him, how did you bet against the economy? Can you walk us through one of those trades? Talk us through how much money, how did you do this? I would just love to hear him explain that.
Like the kids I grew up with, their kids and their grandkids would live in desperate poverty.
But what was the moment for you of self-realization that you wanted to get
Well,
out of
it's a good question because it didn't really come in a moment. I mean, you spoke in the book about me sort of having a breakdown. I didn't grow up. I'm not from a political. I don't consider myself a politician. Like for me,
No, I get it.
what I see, I made that money and everybody around me was like, well done, here's $2 million. Do it again.
Wait, did he just accidentally reveal? So it was 2 million is how much he earned? Did he say 2 or 10?
I made that money and everybody around me was like, well done, here's $2 million. Do it again. I got sick.
Well, what made you sick, do you think? Was it the pace of work? Or
It was understanding that my country's going to fall apart, Piers. It's going to happen, Piers. Listen, I've been right for 14 years on this, okay?
Oh my God.
It's going to happen. And you've made your predictions, And I fucking hope I'm wrong, but I haven't been wrong before.
What do you make of the whole crypto thing?
I think it's a fucking
Did he say it before? I thought before he said his goal in mind was 2 million, but he didn't say how much he actually earned.
Mitzky.
Do you?
Yeah, listen, I
don't understand it.
I could launch Gazcoin today and my followers would send me £500,000 and I could fuck off, and that's basically how it works, I think it's a very efficient way to get a lot of money out of the young, hopeful, ambitious young men of this world into the pockets of the worst San Francisco dickheads you've ever met.
Piers, I also think we just, again, have to make the distinction between UK economics and history and American economics and history. In America, because we have been the home of free market capitalism, again, putting aside the fraud and corruption.
Yes. Remember, America is the only country with free market capitalism. All across Europe, apparently, we did lose the Cold War, and communism and socialism started every single country. Yes. Tell us, Dave Rubin, about America, the only country with free market democracy. Yes.
And things like that. Every single person that has come to America has it better the next generation, right? That has worked. Anyone that's watching this from an
Every single person that's come to, so if we go and we look at like quintiles of wealth and mobility up and down through different quintiles, everybody is always going up all the time, constantly. I don't believe that's true at all. It's not true at all, but okay.
American perspective, think about your grandparents, and guess what? Your parents had it better than them, and you have it better than them. This generation right now is the first generation that's actually a question. That's actually true. But the issue is not because capitalism doesn't work or free markets don't work or competition doesn't work.
It's because the government's getting in the way. We just got to get the government out of the way and let the markets be magical. Let's go.
It's because of the bureaucratic state and the absolute control and regulation that the government has put on.
Yes.
So again, this is what Donald Trump is hacking away at right now. So I'm very bullish on the American economy and the ability for people who are making 50 grand, which is an awful lot of money, which by the way, if I had a flat tax, I wrote about this in my book, I would exempt people, say under 50. You can have some sort of buffer.
Oh my God, what? You're just like recreating a shittier progressive taxation. He's like, we should have a flat tax, but under 50K in income doesn't count. Okay, so we have 0% from this income to this income, and then 50K and more, we increase the tax rate. What do you call that system where when you earn more money, the taxes go up? You've just recreated a shittier, less progressive taxation system. Now I'm just waiting to say, and you know what? People who make over $1 million, maybe their flat tax can be 20%, okay? Maybe,
there, but they will have a chance to succeed. The Democrats have confused everybody to think that, oh my God, if you don't earn minimum wage at McDonald's, that somehow.
And also, I would say whenever socialism has actually been tried,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Can I talk a little bit? I just want to talk a little
into.
bit about the hacking away of the state, because I know we're British and we get chances to talk. I know there's a lot of American viewers of this show.
Yeah.
I want to send a message from the future, okay? We've had the government here that spent 14 years hacking away at the state. And my friends can't feed their kids, okay? That's what happens.
Literally. Starvation in London is a huge problem right now. 20,000 deaths last year from childhood disease from underfed children.
Well, I hope you're better. One example I would give you. One thing I would say, I remember when I bought my first house, I was 20, so we're talking nearly 40 years ago. And I bought it with two mates, and all you needed then to buy a reasonable place in London in the suburbs was you needed one parent to just act as a guarantor, not even put any money up, just to guarantor, and you would get 100% mortgage, right? They would just give you the money, the banks. When one of my sons, the first one to actually want to buy a property and asked me to help him out, minimum 25% deposit, minimum, as a check before you start anything else. And that was shocking to me, that in 40 years, we've gone from a place where anyone could afford to get a property, really, once you got onto the working ladder, all right, diminishing size and geography and so on, you could afford to buy your own home. Most people, I'm not talking about people in the poverty trap, but now you can even come from a pretty prosperous background and life and earn good money, and it's still incredibly prohibitive. And most people are priced out of, in London certainly, of owning their own home. I find that very heartbreaking.
Sure. Well, we also made banks that were too big to fail. We made them bigger, right? I mean, that was what we did. We had a certain amount of banks, and then we made the banking system smaller in that there were less banks to work with. So then what happens? There's less competition. So less banks suddenly can compete to get your mortgage. So mortgage rates go up on top.
But I would say also this, Gary, about money itself, right? I've interviewed thousands of people in 40 years of journalism, right? Thousands. I've interviewed some of the richest people ever. I've interviewed some very poor people. I've got mates who've got money. I've got mates who've got no money. And the one common denominator I can tell you is you get happy rich people and you get miserable rich people, and you get happy poor people and you get miserable poor people. And there's no, to me, there's not a direct correlation. I remember going to...
This is true when you're speaking about like life fulfillment stuff, but this is absolutely not true when you're speaking about like, can you afford a vehicle? Can you afford to get to work? Can you afford to not fucking miss bills? Or if a health thing comes up, especially when you've got like aging parents, or how stressful is it going to be to deal with a child when you have a child and you got to figure out childcare before they go to school? Like,
South Africa, poor people. And there's no, to me, there's not a direct correlation. I remember going to South Africa, to the townships in Soweto for the first time. And the one thing that struck me, I said this to the people that were showing me around. Funny enough, I was going to interview, hopefully, Mandela. It never came off because he was too sick. But I was there to do the World Cup, and he was going to host it. But what struck me was they were joyous people in the townships, utterly joyous, singing, dancing. They had nothing. And then I thought of...
Now, I don't know the underlying mechanisms that are theorized to explain this, but what Piers is saying might not necessarily be untrue, but I think this speaks to the fact that I don't believe that poverty or living standards, I don't know why, I don't know what the explanation is. I don't believe it's poverty or living standards necessarily that are tied to like general happiness or unhappiness. I think it has more to do with actual like wealth inequality. I don't know what the explanation is or what the mechanism is that's theorized for that, but so this isn't the most impossible to believe thing, but it's...
About some of the dinner parties I've been to with a lot of rich people. Miserable bastards, all of them. All because they're always constantly chasing the drug of more money, more material things, more whatever. In other words, you know, money is no guarantee whether you have it or not that you're going to be happy. There are many other criteria. I would simply put it to you. I don't know the answer, but could it be other things that have happened to you that have made you feel so angst-ridden about this, rather than actually money?
I mean, it could be, and obviously we're all complicated people. We live long lives. Lots of things happen to us.
You must have had miserable and happy people working with you.
Oh yeah, look, 100%.
And similarly,
100%.
when you're working class backgrounds.
Except South Africa has horrendous wealth inequality, so that would work against your point. I don't think he was talking about Cape Town or whatever the fuck the capital is. If you're talking about like, if you go to like South Africa in the cities, it's not like African tribes people dancing. That's like a country with houses and electricity and stuff. Okay. Maybe there are parts of South Africa they still do that though, but...
With three of us here, I suspect 3 multimillionaires telling us it's possible to be poor and happy, being watched by a lot of ordinary people who are going to lose their homes. They're going to lose...
This guy, his virtue signals so hard. Oh my God, it's so fucking cringe. Oh.
Their fucking homes, Piers. They're going to lose their homes. I've got friends, yeah?
Yeah.
They don't eat, so the kids can eat, and they think the kids don't notice, yeah? The kids fucking notice, okay? Look, you and I...
No, there are more people...
Why doesn't he help his friends? Are they really starving? How much? These are just crazy answers to give. Holy shit. I don't know, man.
More people on food stamps.
I don't believe him. I don't think he's wealthy now. Or he might be wealthy in that like his parents have a big trust fund for him. I don't think he grew up poor. True. I keep forgetting. He's not Mahatma Gandhi. My bad. True. My bad.
The kids fucking notice, okay? Look, you and I...
No, there are more people on food stamps in this country, which is where you're so poor you have to literally queue up and get stamps for food, right? Which should never be happening in a country
Just
like
to be clear, I'm not telling anyone to be poor and happy. I want people to be as happy and fulfilled as they possibly can be.
Thanks,
But what I'm talking about is creating the conditions that will allow people to live a life that they want to live and work a job that gives
of the 50s.
Well, no,
Create the conditions of the 60s.
So your solution, I completely disagree with, which is, let's just take more from those people. They have too much, and if we only give it to the government, which whether you're in this country or in my country, I think it's fairly obvious that most of our governments are completely fraudulent and backwards and doing virtually nothing right.
Who's doing the taking? Who's doing the taking? Which group in our society is getting richer and which group is getting poorer?
So again,
who is doing the taking?
Again, so I accept that the rich are getting richer.
I'm just here to protect my people.
Poorer.
I'm just here to protect my people.
I think what you would want to do
I think we're agreeing about the reality.
Right,
what we're disagreeing about is the solution.
And the solution is get the government out of the way. Stop spending. Stop.
But you think the government should be much
Listen,
more
let
involved?
me take you by a hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something.
But again, that's because your government clearly has done policies, it seems you both are in agreement on that, that hasn't created the conditions for economic prosperity. You might want to talk about importing people that you then had
They've
to
been
put on
slashing
the
the
dole.
state. They've been
and a whole
slashing the
bunch of-
state for 14 years, boss. They slashed the state, they slashed the state, they slashed the
So
state.
you think if the state
and now my
was
friends'
only-
kids don't have no
I
places to
just-
go, they don't
genuinely
have no
understand the
local
premise. So you think
services,
if the
the
state
police
was
barely
bigger,
exist,
things would be
the
better.
hospitals aren't working, the schools are shutting down.
So if only that system had more money, it would be better?
Listen, I don't want the
that's a
system
very
to have
Bernie
money. I'll
Sanders
tell you what I
argument.
want.
We
I
hear
want
this in
the
states all the
people.
time. The system is corrupt.
Well, funny enough,
and all these
if you
things.
take the
It
NHS,
needs more money.
If you take our health system, the NHS, Tony Blair, when he was Prime Minister, pumped billions more into the NHS and it barely touched the size. It didn't deal with the problem of the infrastructure of the NHS. And that was a clear illustration of money, just pumping money into
Yes.
things is not necessarily the answer. Right?
Okay, but who are we pumping money into?
Well, you are absolutely right. I think we can all agree. We have all agreed. You're right. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So what do we do about this? I mean, there is a caveat. There is less child poverty now than there's ever been in the history of the recorded planet. People also, to make you also feel happy, people are living longer than they've ever done in history. They're living healthier because we're curing so many more diseases. Water is a lot cleaner than it's ever been. There are fewer like mosquito-type diseases out there killing millions of people than there used to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a very good argument to say that in recorded history, there's never been a better time to be alive. That's why I slightly challenge. I would never say, like you say, you never say being poor makes you happy. Of course not. But I've yet to see evidence.
Piers, do you think your viewers are the richest they've ever been? Is that what you're telling me?
No, but I don't. But I think that there's certainly less child poverty statistically
In the US?
than there's ever been.
Your average American is
In the West,
richest they've ever
generally,
been?
actually. In the West,
Oh,
generally.
your viewers can make their own opinion of that.
You don't think it's true?
I want your viewers to ask themselves, do I feel the richest I've ever been? Because I'll tell you who's the richest they've ever been, me, and probably you, and Donald Trump, and Elon Musk. And in my opinion, what I see, I'm from a poor background.
Yeah, but I
I
think
see it
you're
every day.
I think one of the problems too, I don't know how much is psychology versus other things that make wealth inequality such a huge driver of people being pissed off. But like, for instance, if you were to say to somebody today, you can't have the good insulin, you get the shitty insulin, right? The pig insulin, whatever. That person and everybody around them would feel fucking horrible. This is terrible. They can't afford the good stuff, the synthetic analogs, the time release, like, holy shit, that's horrible. That person would probably psychologically feel worse than a person who just has type 2 diabetes, you know, like 150 years ago who has no insulin, right? So I mean, it sucks, but I mean, I don't know how you deal with these issues directly, but
I think you're a great example of somebody who's made something of himself, come from a poor working class background by your own admission, and you turned yourself into the best trader in the world. You're a great example, and yet what you seem to be wanting to do is almost retreat.
No,
from
it's
your,
not. I don't want to
retreat
tax
from
work.
your
I don't
success.
want to tax working people more. Okay? I worked hard to drag my family out of poverty, right? And I paid 50-60% a year tax. At the same time, Duke of Westminster inherits £10 billion, more than 3,000 times what I made, pays nothing. Do you think that's fair?
No.
Do you think that's fair?
No, but again,
So let's change it. Let's change it. Let's tax working people less.
why did you say no then, Dave? You should have said yes. That is fair. Why would you say no? What?
Your viewers less, and let's tax the billionaires more.
I would
Well, we have all
first
sorts
off,
of
saying
views.
they pay no taxes isn't quite right because people pay all sorts of taxes when you're running businesses, like payroll taxes and property taxes and everything else. So
What? People say pay all sorts of taxes when you're running business, like payroll taxes. Guess who else pays payroll taxes? The workers, motherfucker. What are you talking about? Cringe.
no tax thing is a total misnomer. But again, the basic premise of what you're saying, I think, is right. But I would also say that the answer of just throwing money at everything, the example you just laid out.
Yeah.
I was with Bobby Kennedy a week or two before he got
Bobby.
confirmed, and he brought up something that I thought was quite
Is he
brilliant. And I think this is why I will take the bet that we just laid out there, which is that he said in all of his years in public service, and this is a guy that's been doing this for decades, he has never been approached more by, he said, tech leaders and industry leaders and innovators, and he did say millionaires and billionaires, who want to now help the government however they can. We have had a
Then tax them more. Okay, thank you.
bureaucratic state that has just taken from the people. Suddenly we have people like Bobby Kennedy and like Elon who are volunteering, who could be doing all those other things that Elon could be doing, that he probably
We
should be
need
doing.
more Elon Musk.
Yeah,
What's
right,
struck me talking to you, Gary?
exactly.
You know what? I'd love to see someone
my
like you get
God.
stuck into the NHS and make it a better economic model. You're obviously brilliant at economics, right? We don't have enough brilliant brains sorting out the big problems in this country. One of the reasons I really am excited by the Elon Musk thing in America is at least stuff's getting done at breakneck speed, which should have probably been done decades ago.
Absolutely
Now, will it
true.
work? I don't know. But I certainly would bet on him to make a real difference for good.
Do you know where
And I would bet on you to do that, right? People like you should be getting stuck into.
He's just waiting to get his slogan out. What he's going to say is, you know where all that extra money is going? You know where all that waste is going? Every time you fund these systems more and they're not getting better, it's because the billionaires are taking all the money.
Issues like the NHS,
Say
big smart guys who can work it out.
We're just saving $50 billion a day already. We're a month into this
Yeah.
already.
50 billion a day? What? 50 billion a day? 50 bill. That's our whole. We did it. It's over. 50 million. It's 40. What are we? 45 days in? Am I doing my math wrong? Is that over $2 trillion? We did it. We saved the entire discretionary spending. Yes. Yes.
On you to do
Let's
that.
go.
Right? People like you should be getting stuck into issues like the NHS. Big smart guys who can work it out.
Told you saving $50 billion a day already.
That's amazing. Yes.
We're a month into this
Listen,
already.
I would love to be getting stuck into the NHS. You know, if Keir Starmer's listening, give me a call.
I'm going to
Listen, I've been to Oxford and I've been to London School of Economics. Do you want me to tell you where those brilliant minds are? I'll tell you right now, they're the best minds, the smartest young people in this country, in America.
The city.
They're sitting on trading floors, making $5 million a year, betting on the collapse of your society.
Wow.
Just like I was. All of the smart guys know. All of the smart guys know. The only difference is I'm the one who's fucking stupid enough to walk away to tell people. That's the only difference.
Well, actually,
brave.
I don't think that makes you stupid at all. I think it's a warning sign we should all take very seriously because you obviously understand economics very well and you've been there. I think the only quibble I have, and Dave has it, is about how we resolve this. I'm not convinced that the way you think it can be resolved would actually be as effective as the way we think it could, but we'll see, right?
We'll see.
The proof will be in the pudding. In the meantime, Trading Game by Gary Stevenson. I think we've heard enough to know it's probably a rollicking read. I'm told some great stories in it. So congratulations, #1 bestseller. That's another amazing achievement for a working class boy from Ilford.
Thank you.
You should be proud.
I am.
It's
Thank
great
you.
to have you on the show. The IRS is the biggest collection agency in the world. Why I can't play him.